Claire Bennett thought the storm would hide her, but snow has a way of revealing what fear tries to bury. By midnight, her little girl had stopped speaking. Her older daughter was gripping a torn bag of papers like a weapon, and the only light ahead belonged to a former Navy SEAL who did not know she had lied to reach his door. Snow came down over Route 1 in heavy white sheets, soft enough to look merciful from behind a window and fierce enough to erase the road from under a pair of tired headlights. Near Camden, Maine, where the black shoulder of the Atlantic pressed against frozen rock and the spruce trees bowed beneath ice, Claire Bennett kept both hands locked on the wheel of a borrowed minivan and tried to remember how far the last mile had felt on the map. The wipers dragged at the windshield with a weak, rubbery groan. They cleared a half circle, lost it, cleared it again. Beyond that there was only snow, the ghost of a guardrail and the pale pulse of hazard lights from the tow truck ahead. In the back seat, Lily sat too straight for an 8-year-old. One arm wrapped around a canvas bag full of birth certificates, a folded insurance letter, 2 peanut butter sandwiches, and the last cash Claire had managed to pull from an ATM before Providence disappeared behind them. Beside her, Grace was bundled in 2 coats and a blanket, her small chin tucked to her chest, her blonde curls damp from melted snow. She had not cried since Augusta. That worried Claire more than crying would have. Children cried when they had room inside them for sound. Grace had been saving all her sounds for months, storing them somewhere no adult could reach. Claire glanced into the mirror. Lily rubbed her hands again. "I am," Lily said, her voice thin but steady. She had answered that way since they left Rhode Island, not like a child being comforted, but like a small night nurse giving a report. "Her fingers are cold again." Claire swallowed. Her throat felt lined with salt. "Keep rubbing. We are close." The tow truck in front of them lurched through a drift, brake lights blinking like 2 red eyes. The driver, Mr. Alvarez, had been kind, in the quiet way of men who had worked in bad weather too long to make speeches about it. When Claire called from a gas station outside Brunswick, voice cracking despite all the pride she had left, he had said he could get them as far as Camden if she paid cash. He had not asked why a woman with 2 little girls needed to reach an old rescue station after dark in a storm that had already closed schools and church suppers. He had only looked at the girls, looked at Claire's face and said, "All right, ma'am. Stay close behind me. If I slow down, you slow down." Now the tow truck slowed. Then it stopped. Claire touched the brake, felt the van slide before it caught, and her heart climbed so high she thought she might choke on it. "Mama?" Lily said. "It is okay." Claire put the van in park. The lie came out smooth from use. "It is okay. We are fine. Just a little farther." She had used those words in motel rooms, church basements, a laundromat in Worcester, where Grace had hidden under a folding table because a man laughed too loudly near the vending machine. She had used them the night Peter Walsh stood in the hallway of the house that had once belonged to Claire's husband and spoke through a closed door with a sweetness that made Lily stop breathing under the covers. She used them now because motherhood sometimes gave a woman only 2 tools, truth and mercy. And mercy had to work until truth could be survived. The tow truck door opened. Mr. Alvarez stepped down into snow almost to his knees. One gloved hand braced on the side mirror. He moved slowly toward Claire's window, his coat bent hard by the wind. She lowered the glass an inch, and cold knifed in sharp with brine and pine. "Tree down," he called. "Maybe 20 yards ahead. I'm going to look for a way around." "How far to the address?" Claire asked. He looked through the blowing snow toward nothing visible. "Could be a mile, could be less, hard to tell." A mile sounded small in daylight. In this storm, it sounded like a country. He held up one hand, telling her to wait, and walked forward with his flashlight. The beam bobbed once, twice, then vanished behind the white wall. Claire closed the window and rubbed warmth back into her fingers. Lily was watching her in the mirror. That child's eyes had changed after her father died. They used to be noisy eyes, full of questions about pancake shapes and whether God liked yellow flowers better than purple ones. Now they were accounting eyes. They measured doors men exit, the level of worry in Claire's mouth. "Did you tell the man we have kids?" Lily asked. Claire knew which man she meant. Not Mr. Alvarez, Nathan Cole. The man at the end of the address folded in her coat pocket. Former Navy SEAL repairman, seasonal caretaker, owner of an old Coast Guard rescue station that had been turned into a strange, narrow house with a red roof and a view of Penobscot Bay. He had posted a notice at Miriam Doyle's shop 2 towns over looking for winter help. Cooking, laundry light, cleaning inventory, possible lodging. Prefer quiet, applicant, must be reliable. Claire had written from a library computer and said she was quiet, reliable, and alone. The last word had felt like a sin even as she typed it. Alone. She had looked at Lily reading to Grace in the children's corner, both girls wearing all their clothes because Claire had not known where they would sleep that night, and she typed the lie anyway. "Not yet," Claire said. Lily's jaw tightened. "You said lying makes things worse." "It can." "Then why did you do it?" Claire watched snow collect on the hood, gathering in soft mounds over rust. "Because sometimes adults make a wrong thing stand between a worse thing and the people they love." Lily thought about that. She did not accept it. Claire could feel that from the front seat, and she did not blame her. The girl had heard too many adult explanations that turned into traps. Grace made a small sound, not a word, barely even breath. Lily bent over her at once. "Mama, she is shaking less." Claire's stomach dropped. Less shaking in real cold was not always good. She had learned that from Adam, her husband, who had been a firefighter and had come home smelling of smoke and rain, telling her gently about winter calls, about how the body did strange, quiet things when it was losing the fight. Adam had been dead 18 months now, gone in a warehouse collapse everyone called an accident because accident was a word people used when they did not want to name all the decisions that came before disaster. After the funeral, his brother Peter had moved through their lives with flowers, casseroles, forms, advice, and a hand on Claire's shoulder that stayed too long. He was so helpful at first that she hated herself for flinching. Then he started deciding. Then he started correcting. Then he started standing between her and doors. The flashlight reappeared lower than before. Claire leaned toward the windshield. Mr. Alvarez was coming back, but his steps had changed. He stumbled once caught the fender of his truck and pressed his hand to his chest. "No," Claire whispered. She shoved the van door open and the storm hit her like a thrown wall. "Stay inside!" she shouted, though the wind tore the words thin. She fought through the snow toward him. He was halfway between the vehicles, bent forward, breathing in short, frightened pulls. "Mr. Alvarez!" He tried to answer, could not. Claire got one arm under his and helped him back toward the minivan because the tow truck cab was farther and higher and his legs were not listening to him anymore. She had no business moving a grown man in a storm. No equipment, no signal, no clean plan, only the stubborn math of close and warm. Lily had already opened the sliding door. Of course she had. Claire wanted to tell her not to be so brave. She wanted every child in the world to be lazy with safety. Instead she said, "Blanket, now!" Lily shoved the spare blanket forward, her face white. Together with more fear than strength, Claire got Mr. Alvarez sitting on the van floor, shoulders against the seat frame. His skin had gone gray beneath its brown warmth. Claire checked his pulse the way Adam had shown her years ago. Fingers at the neck, not too hard. It was there, fast and uneven. "Phone," she said. Lily handed it over, no service. Claire held it up, turned, tried again. Nothing. Mr. Alvarez's eyes fluttered. "My pills," he breathed. "Truck." Claire looked through the storm at the tow truck 20 feet away and already fading. Where? Console. He shut his eyes. Claire squeezed his shoulder. Stay with me. She ran. The snow was deeper than it had been 5 minutes ago, or maybe her legs were giving up. She reached the truck, climbed into the cab, found a plastic bottle in the console and a radio mounted under the dash. She grabbed both. The radio spat static when she pressed the button. Hello, emergency. We need help on Route 1 near Camden near... She looked for a marker and saw nothing but snow. Near the old rescue station road. Driver in medical distress. 2 children in vehicle. Static answered. Then a broken voice, distant, maybe dispatch, maybe a plow. Claire shouted again. The wind rocked the truck. She snatched the keys, locked, nothing, and forced her way back. By the time she reached the van, Lily had wrapped Grace tighter and was holding Mr. Alvarez's gloved hand with solemn command. Mama, he is still breathing. Good girl. Claire found the medication, followed the label as best she could, and helped him take what he could. She waited for the miracle of quick recovery. It did not come. His breathing steadied a little enough to keep terror from taking the whole van, but he could not stand. The radio in Claire's lap crackled once, then died into static. Somewhere nearby, a branch cracked under ice with a sound like a rifle shot. Grace did not react. That silence put a cold place inside Claire, colder than the storm. They could not stay. Claire understood it with a clarity that seemed almost cruel. The van had little gas, the tow truck blocked by a fallen tree, the driver unable to walk, the phone useless, and Grace sliding into that frightening quiet where a child looked to sleep but was not resting. The address was close. Mr. Alvarez had said so. The old rescue station had to be on the spur road beyond the trees. Claire could smell wood smoke whenever the wind shifted, not strong but real, a human smell in a world trying to become blank. She made the only plan left. She moved Mr. Alvarez as safely as she could into the front passenger seat, covered him, left the hazard lights blinking, and tucked the radio beside his hand after pressing the emergency channel again and again until she heard one broken acknowledgement that help was trying to locate them. She wrote the address on a receipt and taped it to the dashboard in case anyone found the vehicle first. Then she opened her coat and pulled Grace against her chest beneath it. The little girl's cheek was cold enough to make Claire gasp. Mama? Lily said, and this time her voice was not steady. Claire cupped her older daughter's face. Listen to me. We are going to follow the road markers to the house with smoke. You hold the bag and the back of my coat. You do not let go, not to help me, not to pick anything up, not for any reason unless I tell you. If you cannot see me, you pull hard. If I fall, you count to 3 and pull harder. Do you understand? Lily nodded. Her lips pressed flat, trapping all the child inside. What about Mr. Alvarez? Help hurt us. They are coming. We cannot help him by letting Grace get colder. That was truth, and it hurt enough to prove it. Claire stepped out first. Snow swallowed her boots. Lily climbed after her, the canvas bag bumping against her knees. The wind shoved them sideways. For a moment, Claire saw nothing, not the van, not the tow truck, not her own hand. Then a reflector flashed faintly to the right. She aimed for it. Step, drag, breathe. Step, drag, breathe. Grace was a small weight against her heart, frighteningly quiet. Lily's fist held the back of her coat with a desperation that pulled the fabric tight against Claire's throat. They moved through the storm by pieces. One reflector, a leaning mailbox, the black line of a spruce trunk, another breath of wood smoke. The road dipped. Claire nearly went down. Lily pulled fierce and immediate, and Claire found her feet. Good, Claire said, though she had no breath for it. Good, baby. At the top of the rise she saw it, a square of amber light blurred by snow set high above a dark line of roof. Not a ranch, not a miracle. A weather-beaten rescue station on a main hill built to watch the sea and stubborn enough to keep standing. Claire tried to call out, but the wind took her voice. She climbed the steps by touch. Her fist hit the door once, twice. Before the third knock, something heavy moved inside. A dog's bark, low and deep, rolled through the wood, then bolts slid. The door opened to warm light, a man in a gray shirt and a German shepherd with sable fur and eyes that seemed to know the shape of trouble before anyone named it. Nathan Cole stood barefoot on the threshold, one hand on the dog's collar, his gaze taking in Claire Lilly, the child hidden inside Claire's coat, the storm behind them, and the lie arriving with the cold. "Who are you?" he asked. Claire's knees almost folded. "Claire Bennett, you hired me. My daughter is freezing, our driver is sick in a van down the road, and I need your fire before I explain what I did wrong." Nathan stared at her for one hard second. The dog stopped barking and pressed forward, nose working not at Claire's face, but at the canvas bag in Lily's hand. Nathan stepped back. "Inside. Now." Claire crossed the threshold. Heat struck her so sharply she nearly cried. Lily stumbled in behind her. Ranger, the dog, did not move away from the bag. He sniffed once, then gave a low warning sound that raised every hair on Claire's neck. Nathan heard it too. His eyes narrowed. "What is in there?" Claire looked from the dog to Lily, then to the bag that held their papers, their money, and the sealed envelope she had taken from Peter's desk without opening because it had her daughter's names written across the front. "Our life," she said. Ranger's ears pinned forward. Outside sirens wailed somewhere far down the buried road, thin as a memory. Nathan closed the door against the storm, and the old rescue station seemed to hold its breath. The storm beat against the old rescue station until every window trembled in its frame. But inside the kitchen, the air smelled of pine logs, wet wool, old coffee, and the mineral tang of the sea that had soaked into the boards over 100 winters. Nathan Cole moved with the abrupt quiet of a man who had learned long ago that panic took up space people needed for living. He pointed Claire toward the stove, then the braided rug in front of it. "There, sit with the little one against you. Do not put her too close to the fire." His voice was low, not gentle exactly, but measured, each word placed where a frightened room could use it. Claire dropped to her knees and opened her coat with fingers that would not work. Grace slid into her arms like a bundle of sticks wrapped in cloth too light, too still, her lashes dark against skin gone pale from the cold. Lily stood just inside the door, clutching the canvas bag, boots dripping onto the floor. Ranger planted himself between Lily and the hallway, not blocking her, not crowding, only watching with the patient seriousness of a sentry who understood children were not enemies, but might still be carrying war inside them. Nathan crossed to a cabinet and pulled down blankets, then a small medical kit, then a digital thermometer. He did not ask useless questions. He checked Grace's breathing, touched her wrist with 2 fingers, looked at her pupils in the firelight, and nodded once, as if arguing with some old fear in his own head. "She is cold, but she is with us. Claire, keep your body heat on her. Lily, can you take off your wet coat?" Lily did not move. "I can do it myself." "Good," Nathan said. "Do it yourself, then put it on that chair so it stops stealing warmth from you." Lily stared at him, surprised by an order that left her dignity intact. She set the bag under the chair, first, one foot hooked around its strap, then peeled off her coat without taking her eyes from him. Ranger's nose twitched toward the bag again. The low sound in his chest returned for half a breath. Nathan glanced at the dog. "Leave it." Ranger obeyed, but not happily. Claire saw that. She also saw the way Nathan saw everything Lily's flinch when the wind slammed the door Grace's silent mouth, the cracked skin across Claire's knuckles, the shape of fear no blanket could cover. "Our driver," Claire said. "Mr. Alvarez. He is in the van. He took his medicine, but he needs help." "I heard the radio before you knocked." Nathan was already pulling boots on with one hand while filling a kettle with the other. "County Dispatch got enough to triangulate near the spur. Owen Pierce is on call tonight. He will get to him." "Who is Owen?" "Paramedic, former Navy corpsman. annoying in useful ways. Nathan set the kettle on the stove. I am going down there now. Claire's head snapped up. In this, you got here carrying a child. I can walk downhill with a pack. He took a heavy coat from a peg, then paused. Ranger stays. The German shepherd looked offended. There was no other word for it. His ears lifted, his mouth closed, and he stared at Nathan as if his partner had forgotten every rule written between them. Do not start, Nathan said to him. You heard me. Ranger gave one sharp bark. Lily's shoulders jumped. Nathan's face changed at once, not softer but aware. He crouched beside the dog and took the old leather collar in his hand. Guard, he said quietly. Soft guard. Ranger's tail gave one slow sweep. The dog turned and went to the braided rug lying down at an angle where he could see Claire, the children, the door, and the hallway. Nathan looked at Lily. That means he watches. It does not mean he touches anybody unless somebody asks him to. Lily's chin came up. Dogs bite. Some do. Does he? Nathan looked at Ranger, then back at Lily. He has when the job required it. His job here is different. How do I know? You do not. Not yet. Nathan zipped his coat. So you watch him, same as he watches you. It was the first thing he said that Lily seemed to understand completely. When Nathan opened the door, winter burst in hard enough to flutter the towels hanging by the sink. Then he was gone, swallowed by white, leaving Claire with 2 daughters, 1 war dog, and a house full of someone else's silence. For several minutes, no one spoke. Claire rubbed Grace's arms and back in slow circles, whispering small things against her hair. Not promises. She had grown careful with promises. She said the names of safe objects instead. Fire, blanket, kettle, chair, mama. Lily stood near the stove, refusing to sit until Claire looked at her and patted the floor. Come here. Lily came, but she sat with her back against the lower cabinet and the canvas bag between her knees. Her eyes kept moving to Ranger. Ranger kept not moving. That somehow made him more present. He was enormous in the firelight, sable coat shining where snow had melted into darker streaks, black saddle across his back, muzzle touched with gray. One ear bore a small notch near the tip. His paws were large and scarred, his breathing steady. Around his collar hung a metal tag that clicked faintly whenever he shifted his head. Click, then quiet. Click, then quiet. Grace's lashes fluttered. Claire leaned close. Baby? No answer. But the little girl's fingers curled weakly in Claire's sweater. Good, Claire breathed. That is good. Lily whispered, Is he mad? Claire knew who she meant. Mr. Cole? Lily nodded. Yes. Because you lied. Yes. Lily picked at the strap of the bag. Peter smiled when he was mad. Claire closed her eyes for 1 second. Just one. She would not let Peter into this room any more than he had already come. Nathan does not look like a smiling when mad man. He looks like a not smiling ever man. A laugh almost surprised Claire out of herself. It came out broken, but it came. Lily glanced at her, startled by the sound. Ranger lifted his head. His tail thumped once, approving or merely observant. Maybe he smiles on federal holidays, Claire said. Lily's mouth twitched. The room shifted by the width of a thread. Then Grace made a sound so small even the fire seemed to lean in. Claire looked down. Grace's eyes were half open, unfocused, fixed not on her mother, but on Ranger. The dog had lowered his head onto his paws. He did not crawl closer. He did not whine. He simply existed warm and watchful. a living boundary between the storm and the child. Grace's fingers slipped free of Claire's sweater and stretched toward him through the air, stopping inches short. Ranger's nose quivered. His eyes moved to Claire, asking in the only language he had. Claire nodded because she could not bear not to. "Easy," she whispered. Ranger rose without sound, old hips stiff for the first step, then settled closer to the rug's edge. Grace touched the fur between his ears with 2 fingers. Her mouth opened. For months, Claire had heard that small gate open and close without sound, as if words walked to the threshold and lost courage. This time, one escaped. Safe. It was not loud. It was barely shaped. But it was a word. Lily clapped both hands over her own mouth. Claire bent over Grace so fast she almost frightened her. "What did you say, sweetheart?" Grace's eyes closed again, exhausted by the effort, her fingers still buried in Ranger's fur. Ranger did not move. Claire pressed her forehead to her daughter's hair and shook, not from cold. Not anymore. Nathan came back 40 minutes later with ice crusted on his shoulders, and Owen Pierce behind him, a broad-shouldered man in a red rescue jacket, carrying a medic bag, and the tired humor of someone who had seen too many bad nights and refused to let them have the last word. They brought news first, because Nathan seemed to know Claire needed it before breath. Mr. Alvarez was alive. A plow crew had reached the road from the south, Owen had stabilized him, and an ambulance was moving him toward Penn Bay Medical Center by the slowest safe route. Claire put a hand over her mouth. Lily's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back in a way that made Owen look away for a second. "He asked about you," Owen said. "Said to tell the lady with the brave girls that he expects his tow fee in heaven or Camden, whichever is more convenient." Lily frowned. "Can he joke if he is sick?" "People especially joke when they are sick," Owen said, kneeling to check Grace. "It saves time on being scared." Ranger allowed Owen near the child, but watched every move. "Hello, Sergeant Fuzzy," Owen said to him. Ranger's lip did not lift, but his opinion was plain. Nathan hung his coat, ignored the nickname, and stood near the sink with snow melting from his sleeves. He had the look of a man holding himself back from questions until the child's pulse told him the room could bear them. Owen worked gently. He asked Claire simple things: how long Grace had been cold, when she last ate, whether she had any medical conditions, why she was not speaking. Claire answered all but the last in order. At the last, her eyes went to Lily. Lily was watching Nathan. Nathan noticed and turned his body slightly away, giving the child less of his height. "She stopped after my husband died," Claire said. "After some trouble with family." Owen accepted the boundary. "All right, she needs warmth, fluids, rest, and if fever or confusion shows up, you wake one of us. I will leave supplies." "I cannot pay for," Claire began. Owen waved that off before it could stand. "Send me a Christmas card with a lighthouse on it. I collect terrible ones." "He does," Nathan said. "It is a character flaw. You own 3 identical gray shirts and talk to your dog like he outranks you," Owen replied. "Do not start on character." Lily looked between them, uncertain whether grown men were allowed to disagree without danger. Owen noticed that too. His humor gentled. "Your mom did a hard thing tonight. So did you." Lily's grip tightened on the bag. "Hard things still can be wrong." The room went quiet. Claire felt the words land where they were aimed. Nathan looked at Lily with something like respect. "They can." Lily did not blink. "She lied to you." "I know." "Are you going to make us leave?" Claire's heart stopped its sensible work. Nathan looked at the snow beating the windows, then at Grace asleep with her hand still tangled in Ranger's fur, then at Claire. "Not tonight." Lily's face closed before relief could show too much.
Tomorrow.
Nathan's jaw flexed. Tomorrow we talk. It was not comfort. It was not cruelty. It was ground, narrow, but real. Owen left after midnight, promising to call about Mr. Alvarez as soon as the lines cleared, and Nathan bolted the door behind him with a care that made Lily watch his hands. The house settled into the private hours when even storms grow tired. Nathan carried a mattress from a storage room to the small bedroom off the hall and set it on the floor beside the bed without being asked. "Room locks from the inside," he said. "Window is painted shut, but I can unstick it tomorrow if that matters to you." Claire understood the gift inside the plain words. He was telling her the ways out. He was telling her he would not be one of the ways in. "It matters," she said. "Then I will fix it." He placed a folded towel, a bottle of water, and a flashlight on the dresser. Ranger stood at the doorway looking from Nathan to Grace, who had woken enough to whimper when Claire tried to lift her hand from the dog's coat. Nathan sighed through his nose. "Ranger." The dog stared back. "No." Ranger's tail did not move. "You are not sleeping in a room with strangers." Grace's fingers tightened. Lily spoke before Claire could. "He can sleep outside the door." Nathan turned to her. "Is that a request or a negotiation?" "A rule." "Whose rule?" Lily swallowed, but held her ground. "Mine." Nathan considered her. Then he nodded once. "Fair." He pointed to the hallway. Ranger went reluctantly and lay down across the threshold like a sandbag with opinions. Lily stood inside the room until Nathan stepped away. "The bag stays with us," she said. "Yes," Nathan answered. "The door stays locked." "Yes." "If Grace needs the dog," Nathan looked down at Ranger, who had already closed his eyes as if the matter were settled. "Knock once." Lily seemed to search his face for the catch. Finding none did not make her trust him, but it confused her enough to soften the line of her shoulders. Claire thanked him with a look because the words were too crowded in her chest. Nathan did not accept it. He simply said, "Sleep while she sleeps." Then he turned away. Claire shut the door, locked it, tested it twice, and heard Lily let out a breath she had been saving since Providence. The room was narrow, with a quilt folded at the foot of the bed, a small desk under the window, and a watercolor of the harbor in summer. Someone had painted sunlight on blue water with such tenderness that Claire knew it had not been Nathan. On the desk stood a photograph in a simple frame. A woman with dark curls leaning against the rail of a boat, laughing at whoever held the camera. Claire did not touch it. She tucked Grace into the bed, made Lily lie beside her, and sat on the mattress with her back against the door. Through the woods she could hear Ranger breathing. Click went his tag when he shifted. Click. A tiny lighthouse sound. Lily whispered, "Mama, are we bad people now?" Claire closed her eyes. "No." "Because of the lie?" "No, we are scared people who made it through one more night." Lily was quiet for a long time. "Grace said safe." Claire pressed her hand to her mouth. "I heard." "Do you think she meant the dog or the house?" Claire listened to the storm, the old beams, the dog outside the door, the footsteps of Nathan Cole moving somewhere in the kitchen, giving them space. He probably did not know how to give with words. "Maybe both," she said. "Maybe she meant the first thing in a long while that did not ask anything from her." Lily rolled toward her sister and tucked the blanket under Grace's chin with hands too careful for a child. Beyond the door, Nathan opened a drawer, then closed it. Metal touched wood softly. Dog tags, maybe. A memory being put away before it could speak. Claire sat in the dark with her daughter's breathing and a retired war dog guarding the threshold, and understood that morning would bring anger, questions, and the cost of what she had done. Tonight had brought fire. Tonight had brought a lock. Tonight had brought one word from a child who had been living under silence like ice. Safe. It was not much against the storm. It was everything. Morning came without sunrise, only a pale loosening of the dark beyond the windows. Gray snow over gray sea under a sky the color of unpolished steel. Camden Harbor lay below the hill in a hush so complete the masts of the winter-stored sailboats looked like black needles stitched into fog. Claire woke on the floor with a cramp in her neck, one hand still resting against the locked door, and for a moment she did not know where she was. Then Ranger's breathing sounded through the wood, steady as a tide, and Grace shifted on the bed with her cheek pink instead of waxen. Lily was awake already. Of course she was. She sat cross-legged at the foot of the bed with the canvas bag in her lap, sorting the papers into stacks by some private system. Birth certificates, social security cards, Adam's death certificate, a letter from the insurance company, a school photograph of Grace from before Silent came over her. The sealed envelope from Peter lay apart from the others. Claire saw Lily's fingers hover near it. "Do not open that." Lily looked up. "Why did you take it if you do not know what is inside?" Claire rubbed both hands over her face. "Because it had your names on it and Peter had no right to keep anything about you from me." "Maybe it says something important." "Maybe. Maybe it says something bad." Claire crawled over and touched her daughter's knee. "Then we will read it when I can think clearly and when you are not carrying the whole world before breakfast." Lily looked down ashamed for 1 second before stubbornness covered it. "I am not carrying the whole world." "No," Claire said softly. "Just too much of ours." Outside the room, a floorboard creaked. Lily went still. Claire rose, unlocked the door, and opened it 3 inches. Ranger lifted his head from the threshold, tail thumping once against the floor. Nathan stood farther down the hall, holding a mug of coffee and looking as if he had slept less than they had. His dark hair was damp from a shower, his jaw rough with stubble. His left shoulder held a little stiff beneath a faded navy sweatshirt. He had set a tray on the hall table, toast, scrambled eggs, sliced apple, 3 mugs, and a small bowl of oatmeal with brown sugar melting on top. "Breakfast," he said. "If anybody can eat." The smell hit Claire with such force that her stomach folded in on itself. She had fed the girls yesterday morning in a gas station with crackers and orange juice. She had not fed herself anything except coffee and fear. "Thank you." Nathan's eyes flicked to the bag in Lily's lap and then away deliberately. "Owen called. Alvarez is stable. Hospital is keeping him for observation. He told Owen to tell you that his wife is mad enough to keep him alive." Claire's knees weakened with relief. Lily whispered, "Good." Grace did not wake, but one hand moved across the quilt as if searching for the dog. Ranger looked at Nathan. Nathan looked back. "Fine," he muttered. "But do not act smug." Ranger rose, stepped into the room, and lay beside the bed close enough for Grace's fingers to find his ear. Lily watched the exchange, and Claire watched Lily watching. Trust, she thought, did not arrive like lightning. It came like snowmelt, drop by drop, finding the same stone again and again, until even granite had to admit it was being changed. The kitchen looked different by daylight. Not warmer, exactly, but clearer. The old rescue station had been built for men who once watched winter seas for wrecks, and Nathan had kept its bones, plain white walls, dark beams, hooks by the door, charts framed behind glass, a long table scarred by work rather than decoration. The windows faced the bay where waves shouldered under ice-gray light. On one shelf sat neatly labeled jars of screws, brass fittings, and boat hardware. On another, a row of cookbooks looked untouched beside a chipped blue bowl full of keys. The house was clean, almost severely so, but it had the feeling of a place maintained rather than lived in. No clutter, no magazines, no shoes kicked off in the wrong corner, no child's drawing curling on a refrigerator door. Claire noticed a woman's red scarf hanging from a peg beside the back entrance, faded from sun left. where someone had once taken it off and expected to put it on again. Nathan saw her notice. His face closed. "Elise?" he said before she could ask. "My fiancée." Claire kept her voice careful. "I'm sorry." "Cancer." He set coffee on the table. 3 years ago. There was nothing to say that would not sound too small, so Claire said nothing. Lily sat with her back to the wall and ate toast in quick bites, watching Nathan over the rim. Grace, wrapped in the quilt, sat on Claire's lap and accepted 3 spoonfuls of oatmeal before turning her face away. Ranger lay under the table with his body positioned so Grace's socked foot rested against his ribs. His tag clicked now and then. Click. Quiet. Click. The sound found a place in the room no one else was using. Nathan leaned against the counter rather than sitting coffee untouched in his hand. "We need to talk about the letter." Claire's spoon stopped. "Yes?" "You told me you were alone." "I know. I asked for one person because I had one room, one budget, and one winter job. I did not ask for children." Lily's fork hit the plate. Grace's foot pulled away from Ranger. Nathan saw both things. He took a breath through his nose and corrected course with the discipline of a man avoiding a cliff in fog. "That came out wrong." Lily's eyes flashed. "It sounded right." Claire set a hand over Lily's. "Let him finish." Nathan looked at the child, not over her head, but at her. "I did not plan for children. That does not mean children are unwanted in the room." Lily held his gaze. "Peter says things like that. The nice version after the mean version." Claire's blood chilled, but Nathan did not bristle. He set his mug down slowly. "Then I will try to say things right the first time." That was not a grand promise. It was better because it was possible. Claire pulled the sealed envelope from the bag and placed it on the table. "I lied because Peter was trying to build a case that I was unfit. He said I was unstable after Adam died. He said I could not manage money. He said the girls needed a man from their father's family to guide them." She looked at Grace, whose fingers had found Ranger again. "He never struck them. I need that clear. But he made our home feel unsafe. He watched, threatened, smiled at neighbors, and used paperwork like a locked door." Grace stopped talking after weeks of him standing outside our room at night and telling me I would lose them if I did not obey. Nathan's hand closed around the counter edge, not violently, but with enough pressure to whiten the knuckles. "Where is he now?" "Providence, I hope." "Hope is not a location, I know." By noon, the storm had eased from a white assault to a steady fall that blurred the edges of the world rather than erasing them. Nathan went outside to clear the steps and check the generator. Lily insisted on helping Claire wash dishes because work gave fear somewhere to go. Grace sat on the floor near the stove with a stub of pencil Nathan had found in a drawer and a brown paper grocery bag Claire cut open for her. Ranger lay beside her. When the pencil scratched the paper, Claire's breath caught. Grace had drawn constantly before Peter's shadow changed the house in Providence. Houses, flowers, dogs she had never met, people with arms as long as rivers. After she stopped speaking, the drawings became smaller, darker, mostly doors. Closed doors. Doors with no handles, doors with a figure outside. Now her hand moved slowly across the paper, shaping a building with a high roof and windows bright as squares of butter. Beside it, she drew a large dog, then 3 smaller figures tucked near the dog's side. Lily dried a plate with unnecessary vigor. "She made you shorter than Ranger, Mama." Claire looked. It was true. For the first time since leaving Rhode Island, she laughed without pain catching the sound halfway. "He does have presence." Ranger's ears lifted at his name. Grace's mouth curved almost a smile there and gone. The back door opened and Nathan came in with an armload of wood. Cold came with him, along with the smell of snow and chainsaw oil. He stopped when he saw the drawing. Grace's pencil froze. Nathan did not step closer. "Good roof line," he said. Claire blinked. Lily narrowed her eyes. What does that mean? Means the house will shed snow instead of holding it until it caves. Lily looked at the paper with new interest. Can a roof do that? If somebody builds it wrong. Did somebody build this house wrong? No. Did you? Nathan stacked the wood. No. The Coast Guard built it before my grandfather was born. I just keep it from taking offense at the weather. Lily seemed unwilling to be amused, which did not stop the corner of her mouth from betraying her. Nathan nodded toward the paper. If Grace wants more pencils, there are some in the desk drawer. Grace did not look up, but her hand moved again, adding a small square to the dog's collar. Click, Claire thought. Click, quiet, click. A sound becoming a shape. Later, while Grace napped, Lily followed Nathan to the workshop attached to the old boat room. Claire saw her go and nearly stopped her, but Miriam Doyle had once written in one of the letters Claire found online about Nathan's job that he was a decent man with the social grace of a damp fence post. Claire was beginning to believe both halves. She stood in the kitchen doorway where she could see through the open passage. Lily stood just inside the workshop, arms folded. Your dog is skinny. Nathan looked up from a snowblower belt he was repairing. He is not skinny. He is distinguished. His hips hurt. Nathan's expression shifted. Sometimes. You should give him a softer bed. He has 3. He chooses the floor because he is dramatic. Ranger from the kitchen thumped his tail as if accepting the charge. Lily did not smile. My dad used to say old dogs should get the good blanket. Nathan's hands stilled. Your dad was right. Peter said Dad spoiled us. He said girls get wild if nobody disciplines them. Nathan set the tool down. Slowly. Peter said a lot. You do not know. No, I do not. Lily stepped closer, not trusting him but needing the words out of her body. He was nice at first. He brought Grace a stuffed rabbit. He told me I was brave. Then he started taking things. The lock from Mama's door, Dad's jacket, the money papers. He said he was helping. He always said helping. Nathan's gaze dropped to the workbench. A long silence filled the space between them, but it did not feel empty. It felt like a man choosing what kind of strength the moment required. Lily, he said at last, if I ever call control help, you are allowed to correct me. She stared. Adults do not like that. Most adults need practice. Do you? More than most. That answer did not fix anything. It stayed. Owen arrived late afternoon in a county rescue SUV, stomping snow off his boots and bringing a report on Alvarez, a sack of groceries, from Miriam Doyle, and the expression of a man who had already heard half the story and did not like the shape of the missing half. Miriam sent bread, soup socks, and a lecture sealed in a jar of blueberry jam, he said. The lecture is implied, the jam is real. Nathan took the bag. You drove through a storm for jam? I drove through a storm because she said if I did not, she would, and nobody wants Miriam on ice with opinions. Owen's eyes found Claire. They were kind without being soft, the eyes of a medic who knew pity could feel like another hand taking control. How is the little one? Warmer, eating a little. She drew. That is something. He crouched near Grace's paper, careful not to loom. That is a very official-looking dog. Grace hid behind Claire's skirt, but she peeked. Ranger inserted himself between Owen and the child with a calm step. Owen held up both hands. I know, your client. Nathan poured coffee. Do not call her that. Ranger is the only one here with a license to practice emotional medicine. He once ate an entire salami out of your truck. Holistic medicine. Lily made a sound that was almost a laugh and immediately looked offended at herself. Owen winked at the floor, not at her, which somehow made it safer. After coffee, while Claire folded the clean towels Nathan had left in a basket,
Owen pulled Nathan onto the porch. Their voices carried through old wood in fragments. "This is not a stray cat situation," Owen said. "I know. Do you? I said I know. A woman running from a controlling relative, 2 traumatized kids' paperwork, state lines. You need a lawyer before trouble gets here wearing a tie." Nathan's reply was too low to hear. Owen's was not. "Because you do this."
You see a crisis and your brain turns into a checklist. Warm them, feed them, secure the perimeter. Good, necessary, but after that comes the part where people are not missions. Silence. Then Nathan said, "I lost people when I treated them like a mission too." Owen's voice changed. "Nate, do not. I am not letting you put that night on every table you sit at for the rest of your life." Another silence. Claire stared at the folded towel in her hands. She should not be listening, but the house was small, and secrets had already cost her too much. Owen left before dark after writing Daniel Keene's number on a notepad and making Nathan promise to call if Grace's condition changed. When the door closed, the rescue station felt different. Not safer, exactly. More populated by truths. Claire found Nathan in the kitchen, staring at the phone number. "You do not have to take us on," she said. "I know. I can work. I can cook, clean, handle books, inventory, supplies, mend, organize. I can earn our place until the road's clear." Nathan looked up. "This is not about earning breakfast. It is for me. Then hear me clearly. You can work because work helps you stand. You do not have to work to make me avoid cruelty." Claire looked away before the tears came. Kindness spoken badly could still break a person if she had gone hungry for it. Nathan pushed the notepad toward her. "Tomorrow we call the lawyer. Tonight you rest." Lily appeared in the hallway, the sealed envelope in her hand and guilt all over her face. "Mama," she said, voice shaking. "I opened it." Claire stood too fast. Nathan did not move, which may have been the only reason Lily did not run. The envelope trembled in her hands. "It has court words," Lily whispered. "Peter wrote that if he finds us, he can make a judge send us back." Snow tapped the windows like fingernails. Ranger rose from the floor and went to Lily, pressing his shoulder lightly against her legs. For the first time, she did not step away. Nathan reached for the paper only after Claire nodded. He read it once, his face going still in that dangerous, disciplined way. "We call Daniel tonight," he said. Claire's mouth felt dry. "Can Peter really do it?" Nathan looked at Lily, then at Grace, watching from the hall, pencil clutched in one small fist. "He can try." The phone sat between them, black and ordinary, and suddenly heavier than any weapon Nathan had carried. Outside, the storm began again. Snow kept falling through the night, not with the violence of the first storm, but with a patient, almost clerical determination, filling each footprint as soon as it was made and filing the world down into silence. By morning, the rescue station stood on its hill above Penobscot Bay like a ship that had decided to anchor in a cloud. The road below had vanished. The harbor bell sounded somewhere in the fog, one low note every half-minute. And inside the kitchen, Claire learned the rhythm of Nathan's coffee maker, the stubborn drawer that stuck near the sink, and the way fear could sit at a breakfast table like an extra guest no one had invited, but everyone had to pass the butter around. Daniel Keene had answered Nathan's late call with the calm irritation of a lawyer accustomed to emergencies arriving after bedtime. He had not given comfort. Claire respected that. He asked facts, dates, names, what papers she had, what Peter had threatened in writing, whether any protective orders existed where the girls had attended school, whether Adam's estate had been settled, and whether Claire had ever signed any temporary guardianship document. She answered until her voice wore thin. Nathan sat across from her, taking notes in block letters so neat they looked printed. Lily listened from the hallway because telling her not to would only teach her to listen harder. Grace slept beside Ranger on the braided rug, one hand on his flank, the pencil still trapped in her fist. At the end of the call, Daniel said, Peter's letter was not a court order. It was a threat dressed in legal language. That helped for about 6 seconds. Then he said threats often came before filings, and if Peter had money, a lawyer, and enough confidence, Claire needed to prepare as if he were already moving. The strongest thing you can do, Daniel said through the crackling line, is establish stability, housing, employment, community witnesses, medical evaluation for the younger child, school plans for the older one, and no appearance of hiding them from legitimate authorities. Claire closed her eyes at the word hiding. Nathan looked up from his notes. What about the fact that she is in my house? Daniel paused. Lawyers had pauses with furniture inside them. That depends what your house is to her. Nathan did not answer right away. Claire stared at the old harbor chart on the wall, at the inked shoals and depths that sailors trusted because someone had bothered to measure what could not be seen from the surface. She came for work, Nathan said, and lodging. Then document it, Daniel replied, but understand how it can be painted. An unrelated woman with 2 children living with a single man she met by letter will be vulnerable to attack by someone determined to make her look desperate or improper. She was desperate, Nathan said. Claire flinched. He saw it and added, that is not the same as unfit. Daniel's voice softened by a degree. Correct. But courtrooms do not reward people for assuming the truth will explain itself. After the call, the house stayed quiet for a long time. Lily finally stepped into the kitchen. What does improper mean? Claire rubbed at a stain on the table that was not there. It means people making ugly guesses. Lily looked at Nathan. Because Mama is here, because some people prefer stories where frightened women are blamed for looking for a door. Lily considered him. That sounded like something from a book. I read sometimes. Books with jokes? No, that explains things. The knock came just after noon. 3 firm raps under the porch roof. Ranger was on his feet before the first one finished, but his tail started wagging halfway to the door, which told Nathan more than any window. Miriam, he said with the weary fatalism of a man naming weather. He opened the door and Miriam Doyle blew into the house wrapped in a green wool coat, a knitted hat with a red pom-pom, and an authority that seemed to bring its own barometric pressure. She was 68, compact, rosy-cheeked from cold, and carrying 2 grocery sacks as if they had personally offended her. Nathan Cole, if you planned to collect half-frozen women and children, you might have mentioned it before I heard from Owen, who heard from Dispatch, who heard from Alvarez's wife, who is currently telling the hospital cafeteria that Maine men have no sense. Nathan took the sacks. Good morning, Miriam. It is afternoon. That is how conversations go when people sleep like normal Christians. She turned to Claire and her expression changed without becoming pity. You must be Claire Bennett. Yes, ma'am. Do not ma'am me unless you intend to make me feel old, in which case I will outlive you from spite. Miriam will do. Lily appeared behind Claire. Miriam spotted her and nodded. And you are the one with the eyes that count exits. Lily's chin lifted. I can also count money. Excellent. Most adults are terrible at both. Grace peeked from behind the stove, one hand buried in Ranger's ruff. Miriam looked at her as one might look at a skittish bird on a windowsill, with welcome but no grab. Hello there. That dog has never met a blanket he did not steal, so guard your quilt. Ranger gave a sneeze that sounded suspiciously like rebuttal. For the next hour, Miriam took over the kitchen without asking permission, and somehow without stealing Claire's place in it. She unpacked bread, canned peaches, lentils, clean socks, children's toothpaste, a stack of paperback books, and a jar of blueberry jam she said was not for Nathan because he had once committed a crime against biscuits by serving them with orange marmalade. Nathan, who had probably done exactly that, said nothing. Claire made coffee. Miriam drank it, approved it, and then waited until Lily took Grace to the small bedroom to look through the books. Now, she said, setting down her mug. Tell me how bad. Claire looked at Nathan. Nathan looked at the window. It was answer enough. Miriam listened to the short version with her hands wrapped around the mug, face growing less rosy and more carved. When Claire finished, Miriam said, "Men like Peter Walsh do not need to swing a fist to make a house unsafe. They just move the walls closer every day and call it concern." Claire's eyes burned. Nathan's jaw flexed. Miriam pointed at him without turning her head. "And you do not go turning yourself into a fortress and thinking that is a family." Nathan exhaled. "I was not." "You were considering it loudly." "I was standing quietly." "You have a very noisy silence." Claire almost smiled. Miriam leaned forward. "Daniel is right. You need stability, and you need it in a form a judge can understand. Employment helps. Church helps. School enrollment helps. Medical records help. But if Peter pushes the idea that you are living here under questionable circumstances, there is one clean answer." Nathan closed his eyes. "Miriam, marriage." The word fell into the room like a plate dropped flat, not broken, but impossible to ignore. Claire stood so quickly her chair scraped the floor. "No." Miriam did not blink. "That is a complete sentence, but not always a final one. I did not come here to trap him into marriage." "No one said you did." "I lied to get through his door. I brought danger with me. I will not ask him to put his name on that." Nathan's voice cut in low. "You are not asking." Claire turned to him. "Do not make this noble. That can be another kind of pressure." Something like respect moved behind Miriam's eyes, quick and warm. Nathan held Claire's gaze. "I am not proposing over lentils." "That may be the most romantic sentence ever spoken in this kitchen," Miriam said. Nathan ignored her with practice. "I am saying the legal issue exists whether we like it or not." "I know it exists." "Then we look at it." "Looking is not deciding." "Agreed." The exchange settled there, not solved, but contained. Miriam studied them both as if reading a map of two people trying not to stand too close to the same fire. "Good," she said. "You can argue without performing. That is a start." Claire sat again, shaking more than she wanted anyone to see. "I was married," she said. "I loved my husband. Adam was good. Not perfect, not saintly, just good in the ordinary way that makes a person miss the sound of his keys in a bowl." Nathan's face changed at that, the smallest fracture. "Elise used to sing when she brushed her hair," he said. He seemed surprised by his own voice. Miriam went still. Claire did not move. "Badly," Nathan added. "On purpose, I think." Claire pictured the red scarf by the door, the watercolor of the summer harbor, a woman laughing from a photograph. "Then she sounds hard to replace." Nathan looked at her, eyes dark. "I am not looking to replace her. I am not looking to replace Adam. Then we agree on something. We agree on grief." The harbor bell sounded through the fog, low and patient. Miriam's face softened. "Sometimes that is enough to start with. Not enough to end with, mind you, but enough to keep people honest." Lily returned with 2 books under one arm and suspicion arranged across her whole body. "Why did everyone get quiet?" Miriam answered before either adult could panic. "Because grown-ups were discussing paperwork and feelings, 2 subjects that make them dull." "Marriage is not paperwork," Lily said. Claire froze. "No," Miriam said gently. "It is not only paperwork." Lily looked at Nathan. "Are you trying to marry my mama?" Nathan's ears went slightly red, which Claire would have found funny in another life. "No." Lily looked at Miriam. "Are you trying to make him? I am trying to make sure Peter Walsh cannot use gossip as a ladder into your lives." Lily absorbed that. "I do not like ladders." "Wise child," Miriam said. "They are useful, but badly behaved. Grace appeared behind Lily holding a drawing. She crossed the kitchen in small, hesitant steps and placed the paper on the table, then retreated to Ranger's side. The drawing showed the rescue station on its hill, the sea below, and a tall lighthouse where no lighthouse existed. At the base of the lighthouse stood a dog with a square on its collar. 4 people were inside the beam of light. Nathan stared at it. "There is no lighthouse here," Lily said. Grace touched Ranger's tag. Click. Then she pointed at Nathan's chest where his dog tags were not, and then at the lamp above the sink. Claire understood none of it and all of it. Grace was drawing a thing that showed the way. She was drawing safety not as walls but as guidance. Nathan swallowed hard. "It is a good lighthouse," he said. Grace hid her face in Ranger's fur. By late afternoon, the snow turned blue in the fading light, and Owen called with news from town. His voice came through the kitchen speaker because Nathan had put the phone down where everyone could hear a choice Claire understood as a small act of trust. "There is a black SUV at the gas station with Rhode Island plates," Owen said. "Young guy asking after a woman with 2 girls. Says he is a cousin. He showed a photo on his phone." Claire's hand went to the back of a chair. Lily stepped closer to Grace. Nathan's whole body became still. Ranger felt the change and rose. "Name?" Nathan asked. He said Mark. Clerk said he had soft hands and expensive boots, which is a whole personality in weather like this. "Did he get directions?" "Not from the clerk, but Camden is small, Nate. If he asks 3 more people, one of them will say too much without meaning to." Claire's breath shortened. The room tilted toward the old place inside her where Peter still stood outside a door, speaking softly enough that no neighbor would call it a threat. Nathan saw it. "Claire." She tried to answer, could not. Lily did. "Is Peter coming?" Owen's voice gentled through the speaker. "Not tonight if I can help it. I already called Daniel. He says do not engage, document everything, and if anyone shows up, call the sheriff." "Sheriffs listen to men with money," Lily said. No one rushed to lie. Miriam, still at the table with her knitting, said, Sometimes they listen to a whole town of stubborn women who know where the good casseroles are buried." Lily blinked. "Casseroles are not buried." "Not with that attitude." It was absurd. It worked for half a second. Claire gripped the chair until her fingers hurt. Nathan ended the call after making a plan with Owen photos. If the SUV came near, Sheriff notified Daniel on standby, Miriam staying the night because the road was worse and because she had already decided. When the kitchen settled, Nathan faced Claire. "I need to say something you may not like. That has not stopped anyone today. If this man confirms you are here, Peter may file quickly. Daniel can fight, but he will need every clean fact we can give him." "Clean facts," Claire repeated. "I have very few of those." "You have more than you think." He looked at the girls, then back at her. "Your husband died. You were threatened. You left to keep your children safe. You found work and shelter. You sought medical help when Grace needed it. You contacted counsel when a legal threat appeared. Those are facts." "And the lie? Also a fact. That fact could ruin us." Nathan stepped closer, stopping well before the distance became pressure. "Then we do not hide it. We explain it before Peter can weaponize it." Claire laughed once, brittle. "You sound like you have done this before." His eyes went somewhere far away. "In the teams, bad information got people hurt. Hiding it got more people hurt. You learn to put the ugly thing on the table and make a plan around it. And if the ugly thing is me," he shook his head. "It is not." Lily whispered from behind them, "What if the judge thinks it is?" Nathan crouched so he was not towering over her. Ranger moved to his side, shoulder brushing his knee. "Then we show the judge the whole picture. What if Peter has a bigger picture, then we bring a brighter light?" Grace touched the drawing on the table, the lighthouse beam made with hard pencil strokes. Miriam murmured, out of the mouths of babes, even when they are quiet. That night, after the girls slept and Miriam snored softly in the armchair by the stove, Claire found Nathan on the porch under the eave watching snow gather on the railing. Ranger stood beside him, both of them facing the dark like it had once given orders. "Marriage would protect us," Claire said. Nathan did not turn. "Maybe. You hate the idea. I hate that the world makes it practical." "So do I." The harbor bell sounded. Nathan's hand rested on Ranger's head. "If we ever discuss it seriously, it will come with rules. Yours first." Claire looked at the snow, at the road hidden below, at the strange house that had become the only place Peter was not already inside. "My daughters choose their own names for you, or no names. Grace is never pushed to speak. Lily is never punished for watching. I keep my own room. Ranger is not used to make them behave, and no one calls this love just because it is useful." Nathan was quiet a long while. "My rule is simpler." "What?" "No more lies inside this house." Claire closed her eyes. The truth had teeth, but so did winter, and she had kept walking through that. "Agreed." Down the road, too far to see a vehicle engine, rose and faded in the snowy dark. Ranger's ears lifted. Nathan's posture changed. Claire felt the night tighten around them. The storm was no longer the only thing looking for the house. The first clear morning in March did not arrive with warmth, only with light. It spread slowly over Camden, catching in the ice on the telephone wires and turning every black spruce needle into a thin, bright line. The snowbanks along the old rescue station road stood taller than Grace, and the sea below the hill moved under a skin of pewter cold, but alive. Claire woke before the girls and stood at the kitchen window, in Nathan's red scarf, the one that had belonged to Elise and still carried a faint scent of cedar from the peg by the door. She had asked before wearing it. Nathan had looked at the scarf for so long she nearly put it back. Then he said, "She hated seeing useful things wasted." That was all. It was enough. Today, Reverend Thomas Avery would come from the little white church above Rockport Harbor, the one with the steeple bell that sounded like a spoon against porcelain when the wind came east. Miriam had arranged it with the speed of a woman who believed hesitation was just fear wearing church shoes. Daniel Keene had reviewed the plan and called it legally helpful but emotionally complicated, which may have been the most lawyerly wedding blessing in Maine. Owen was bringing paperwork for Nathan to start temporary guardianship and future adoption proceedings if Claire chose to proceed. If Claire chose. Everyone kept saying that carefully, and each time it made her feel both grateful and cornered. Choice was not simple when the road behind you was full of traps. She turned from the window and found Nathan in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of coffee and wearing his dark suit jacket over a white shirt that looked uncomfortable enough to qualify as penance. He had shaved. The scar under his jaw showed more clearly without stubble. A pale curve almost hidden unless light found it. "You look like a man going to court," Claire said. "Feels like it. That is not romantic. I warned you about my limitations." She took 1 mug and tried not to smile because smiling today felt dangerous, like admitting hope in front of witnesses. Nathan looked toward the hall where the girls slept. "Still time to call it off. I know. I mean it. I know. Miriam will yell. Miriam would yell if the sun rose from the wrong side." Nathan's mouth twitched. A real, almost smile. Claire filed it away, not because it meant love, but because it meant morning had found a crack in him. "I am not marrying you because I think a certificate fixes fear," she said. "I am marrying you because Peter understands paper, and my daughters deserve every kind of shelter we can build. Legal, practical, human." Nathan nodded. "I am marrying you because I can give them my name in rooms where men like Peter respect names more than truth. And because," he looked at her, "because when Grace drew the lighthouse, she put all of us in the beam." Claire's throat tightened. That was the closest either of them had come to saying what stood behind the practical thing. It was not romance. It was not romance. It was a door left unlatched in a house where every lock mattered. By 10, the kitchen had become a chapel because Miriam declared that God had managed worse locations and would not complain. She set a clean white cloth over the table, placed a jar of winterberry branches in the center, and ordered Nathan to move the boots from the back door because nothing says holy matrimony like melted slush and old rubber. Owen arrived with a grocery store cake that read, "Best wishes" in blue icing, and one corner already damaged because he claimed the road attacked him. Ranger inspected the cake with professional suspicion. Lily wore a navy dress Miriam had altered overnight from something found in the back of her shop, and she kept smoothing the skirt, as if trying to decide whether pretty clothes made a person more vulnerable. Grace wore a pale gray sweater and held two things: her pencil and the small metal tag Nathan had taken from Ranger's old working harness, cleaned and threaded onto a ribbon for her. He had not given it to her directly. He left it on the table beside her oatmeal with a note that said, "For your lighthouse drawings, if you want it." Grace had taken it without a word and tied it around her wrist like a bracelet. Claire wore a simple green dress Miriam had produced from some mysterious reserve of garments for emergencies, and Elise's red scarf over her shoulders because Nathan had said she could, and because Claire wanted this day to hold all the truth, even the uncomfortable kind. Reverend Avery arrived last, a tall, narrow man with silver hair, snow on his coat, and eyes that seemed to see sorrow without making a display of it. He shook Nathan's hand, greeted Claire gently, and crouched just enough to tell Grace, "I hear you are an artist." Grace hid behind Ranger. Reverend Avery nodded as if this was a perfectly good answer. Artists often need privacy. Lily watched him. "Are you going to say a lot of things?" "As few as the law and the Lord will allow," he replied. "Good," Lily said. "Long weddings are suspicious." Miriam coughed into her hand in a way that did not hide her laugh at all. The ceremony lasted 8 minutes. Reverend Avery spoke of vows as shelter, not chains, of families built by promise as well as birth, of mercy arriving sometimes as a responsibility no one planned. Nathan stood beside Claire with his hands steady at his sides, though she saw the pulse beating in his throat. When the Reverend asked if he would honor and protect, he did not look noble. He looked frightened enough to understand the weight of the words. "I will," he said. Claire said the same, her voice stronger than she expected. When the rings came, there was only one Adams plain gold band resized by a jeweler Owen knew, who owed Nathan a favor involving a boat engine and a very bad tide. Claire had thought using it would feel wrong. Instead, it felt like carrying Adam's goodness forward into a place Peter could not touch. Nathan did not have a ring. He wore a simple band Daniel had brought from town, silver, unadorned, practical. Ranger sneezed during the prayer. Lily whispered, "Amen," as if correcting him. Grace drew through the whole ceremony, her pencil moving softly over paper while two adults made promises no one in the room mistook for easy. After the careful wedding kiss, brief and warm and not for show, the house exhaled into ordinary noise. Miriam cried and denied it. Owen cut the cake too large for everyone and said portion control was a land-based myth. Reverend Avery drank coffee and asked Lily what she was reading. Ranger stole a crumb from the floor with the clean conscience of a retired veteran. Grace placed her drawing on the table near Nathan's hand and retreated before anyone could make too much of it. He looked down. The rescue station stood under a sky full of pencil snow. A beam of light impossibly wide stretched from a lighthouse on the hill and held 5 figures: Claire, Lily, Grace, Ranger, and Nathan. The figures did not touch, but none stood outside the beam. Nathan's fingers hovered over the paper. He did not touch it. "May I keep this here?" he asked, not looking directly at Grace. The little girl nodded against Ranger's side. "Thank you." Lily watched that exchange with sharp eyes.
Does being married mean we have to call you something?
Nathan shook his head. No.
Does it mean you can tell us what to do?
I could already tell you not to run into traffic or eat Owen's cake for breakfast. Owen lifted his fork.
That is oppression,
Nathan continued.
but no, it does not mean I own your words or your choices.
Lily considered this.
Peter said family means obedience.
Claire's hand tightened around her napkin. Nathan set down his coffee. Peter was wrong.
What does it mean then?
He looked at Claire, then at the red scarf, then at Grace's drawing. It means people keep choosing the work after the feeling changes. Miriam grew very still. Owen looked at the window. Reverend Avery smiled faintly. Lily frowned, not because she disliked the answer, but because it required thought.
That sounds tiring.
It is.
Then why do it?
Nathan's gaze moved to Grace, leaning into Ranger, to Claire, standing in a kitchen that had not felt this alive in years, to Lily herself, with cake icing on one sleeve and courage held like a shield. Because some work gives back. Lily did not answer, but later, when Miriam asked everyone to sign as witnesses on the marriage certificate, Lily stood close enough that her shoulder brushed Nathan's sleeve. Grace did not speak. She did not need to. Her pencil said enough for one day. The letter arrived before sunset, which felt rude even by legal standards. A sheriff's deputy brought it because the road had finally been cleared and because Peter Walsh had already learned the theater of official envelopes. The deputy was young, apologetic, and visibly relieved when Nathan received him on the porch, with Daniel Keene already on speakerphone. Claire stood behind the storm door with Lily and Grace. Ranger stood beside Nathan, calm but alert, his old working posture returning like a song his body remembered. This is a notice of petition filed in Rhode Island Family Court with a request for emergency review, the deputy said. I am not enforcing anything. I am only serving notice. Daniel's voice came through the phone, dry as kindling. Thank you, deputy. Please note for your record that my clients acknowledge receipt and dispute jurisdiction pending main filings. The deputy blinked. Yes, sir. Nathan signed for the envelope. Peter's name sat on the return address like a stain. Claire felt Lily's fingers find hers. Grace pressed the ribboned tag against her own wrist. After the deputy left, Nathan brought the envelope inside and put it on the kitchen table exactly where the wedding cake had been. No one spoke for a moment. Miriam muttered something unflattering about timing. Owen read over Daniel's shoulder as the lawyer summarized by phone. Peter alleged Claire had removed the children without notice, placed them with a stranger with military trauma, and a former working dog failed to maintain stable schooling and entered a hasty marriage to avoid scrutiny. He requested temporary custody pending investigation. The words were clean, official, and cruel, without raising their voice. Claire sat down because her legs could no longer be trusted. Lily's face went white, except for two bright spots high on her cheeks. He wrote Ranger is dangerous, she said. Nathan's eyes flicked to the dog. Ranger, unaware of litigation, was licking icing off Owen's dropped fork. He wrote Mama is unstable. Claire closed her eyes. Lily. He did. The girl's voice sharpened. He makes things sound wrong. He always makes things sound wrong. Daniel spoke gently from the phone. That is why we answer with evidence, not shouting. We file in Maine first thing tomorrow. We request recognition of Claire's custody, document the marriage, seek protective conditions, and schedule evaluations that show the girls are safe. Evaluations? Claire asked. A social worker may need to visit. Nathan may need to provide records related to his service and treatment. Ranger's retirement and behavior history may matter. Nathan looked down at his hands. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Claire saw what the letter had done. It had turned his wounds into exhibits. No, she said. I will not let Peter put you on trial because you opened a door. Nathan looked up. He already did. The room tightened.
Owen stepped forward. Nate, I can help with records. The VA counselor training paperwork, Ranger's retirement file, we keep it clean. Nathan nodded once, but his face had gone far away out onto some older field of snow or sand or memory. Grace moved before anyone else did. She crossed the kitchen slow but certain and placed her small hand on Ranger's head. Then she guided the dog to Nathan. Ranger leaned against Nathan's leg, heavy and warm. Nathan's eyes closed. His hand found the dog's collar. Click. Quiet. Click. The sound returned him by inches. Lily watched, still shaking. "Can Peter win?" No adult answered too fast. Reverend Avery folded his hands. "He can cause fear. That is not the same as winning." Miriam nodded. "And he has picked a fight with a town that hates bullies, paperwork or no paperwork." Daniel cleared his throat through the phone. "For tonight, do not contact him. Do not post anything. Keep the girls calm. Tomorrow we begin." Claire looked at Nathan.
"I am sorry." He shook his head. "No apologies tonight, but we got married this morning. Let Peter have paper. We still get one evening." It was such a stubborn, ordinary mercy that Claire almost broke. So they ate cake. Not because they were not afraid, but because fear did not deserve the whole table. Later, when the girls slept, Claire found Nathan in the workshop opening a small wooden box. Inside were his dog tags and a photograph of men in desert uniforms standing beside a younger ranger. Nathan touched the tags, then closed the box without taking them out. "Tomorrow," he said. Claire stood beside him, not touching. Tomorrow. Outside, snow began again, fine and silver in the porch light. Inside, the rescue station held the warmth of a wedding, the chill of a lawsuit, and the fragile middle ground where a practical vow started asking to become something more. The northeast wind came hard over Rockland Harbor the next week, driving snow sideways through the streets and turning every parked car into a soft white shape without history. The town kept moving anyway, because Maine had no patience for weather that repeated itself. Plows groaned past the courthouse annex. Fishermen stamped into the diner before dawn. Miriam Doyle opened her shop with a broom in one hand and a telephone in the other, gathering witnesses the way other people gathered firewood. At the rescue station, Claire learned that fear could be organized into folders. Daniel Keene arrived with a leather satchel, a yellow legal pad, and a gaze that made no promises he could not file. He spread papers across Nathan's kitchen table in careful stacks: marriage certificate, employment agreement, proof of lodging, medical notes from Owen, a school enrollment packet for Lily, photographs of the bedroom pantry locks, smoke detectors, and Ranger's retirement records from the military working dog program. Claire stared at the last stack. It held a picture of Ranger, younger and darker, sitting beside Nathan in gear, both of them looking at the camera with the same expression of weary suspicion. "Peter will try to make him sound like a weapon," Daniel said. "We show he is retired, trained, controlled, and beneficial to Grace's regulation." Lily looked up from her math workbook. "Regulation sounds like a stove part." Owen, who had come to help, nodded gravely. "It is the part that keeps adults from boiling over." Nathan did not smile. He had barely slept since the letter came. Claire could see it in the way he checked the windows too often, not dramatically, not with wildness, just a soldier scan pressed into domestic life until the house itself seemed to stand at attention. Ranger tracked him with worried eyes. Grace tracked Ranger. Lily tracked everyone. Claire wanted to throw every legal paper into the stove and feed the girls pancakes until the world became simple. Instead, she signed where Daniel told her to sign. Her handwriting looked strange beneath her new name. Claire Bennett Cole. She had not expected that middle space to feel like a bridge. Daniel tapped the page. "We file in Maine for temporary protective jurisdiction. We argue the children are present safe and at risk of emotional harm if returned to Peter's environment. Rhode Island may still respond. This will not be one hearing and done. How long? Claire asked. Weeks if we are fortunate. Months if Peter wants to spend money. Lily's pencil stopped. He likes spending money if it makes Mama tired. No one contradicted her. Nathan turned a page slowly. What do you need from me? Daniel looked at him over his glasses. Honesty, records, a statement from your counselor if possible, and restraint if Peter contacts you. Owen shifted in his chair. Nathan's voice stayed level. Restraint I can do. Owen muttered, you can do silence. Restraint has paperwork. Nathan looked at him. Owen held up both hands, helping. Claire watched the two men. Their friendship had the shape of old danger and older loyalty. They could insult each other because once, somewhere far from this kitchen, they had counted on each other's hands not to shake. Now those hands were being asked to hold school forms and custody affidavits. That, Claire thought, might be harder. The first social worker came on a Thursday afternoon, when snow fell in small, dry flakes that ticked against the windows like rice. Her name was Andrea Mills, and she wore sensible boots, a kind face, and the careful neutrality of someone whose opinion could change a child's life. Claire had cleaned the house twice before Andrea arrived, then stopped because Nathan said a home scrubbed of all evidence of children might look more alarming than one with crayons on the table. Grace had arranged her drawings along the windowsill: houses, lighthouses, ranger, a dark figure outside a door. Then later drawings where the door became smaller and the light became larger. Lily had placed 3 books on the table to prove she was educated, then moved them twice so they did not look arranged. Nathan made coffee and forgot to drink it. Ranger wore his plain house collar instead of the old working harness because Daniel said optics mattered, and Miriam said anyone scared of a dog and a bandana did not deserve pie. Ranger refused the bandana. That was probably for the best. Andrea began with the ordinary things: sleeping arrangements, meals, schooling, medical care, discipline. Claire answered, voice steady. Nathan added details only when asked. Lily sat at the table pretending not to listen. Grace sat on the floor with Ranger, drawing a line around the dog's paw on paper. Andrea eventually crouched several feet away. May I see your picture? Grace's pencil paused. She looked at Claire, then at Ranger, then slid the paper across the floor without getting closer. Andrea smiled. Thank you. She did not ask Grace to speak. Claire could have hugged her for that alone. Lily, however, spoke for all the words Grace was not using. Peter says Mama took us. Andrea turned her attention gently. What do you say? Lily's shoulders tightened. Mama brought us. What is the difference? Taking is when somebody owns a thing. Bringing is when somebody carries what belongs with her. The room went so quiet the stove seemed loud. Andrea wrote something down. Nathan looked at the floor. Claire pressed her nails into her palm to keep from crying. Do you feel safe here? Andrea asked. Lily looked at Nathan. He did not move. Ranger's tag clicked as Grace shifted beside him. I am watching, Lily said. That is not exactly yes. It is my way toward yes. Andrea nodded as if she understood that a child's road could be longer than an adult's patience. Later she asked Nathan about his service, his PTSD, and Ranger's role. Nathan answered without detail, safely naming treatment routines, sleep difficulty, startle responses, and grounding practices. He did not describe missions. He did not make pain into a performance. Do the children trigger your symptoms? Andrea asked. Nathan looked toward Grace, who was now coloring Ranger's traced paw with careful stripes. They trigger my wish to be better at being a person. Andrea's pen stopped. That is not clinical language, Mr. Cole. No, ma'am. It may be useful anyway. When she left, Lily followed Claire to the sink and whispered, Did we pass? Claire looked at Nathan,
At Grace, at the drawings, at the house that smelled of coffee and wet boots and dread. We told the truth. Lily frowned. That is not the same. No, Claire said, but it is the only thing we can keep doing without losing ourselves.
Peter's first direct call came that night. The number showed unknown, but Claire knew before she answered because her body remembered him faster than any phone could display a name. Daniel had instructed her not to answer if Peter called, to let voicemail collect evidence. She obeyed. The phone rang on the kitchen table, each vibration moving at a fraction of an inch across the wood. Lily stood in the hallway with Grace behind her. Nathan stood by the stove, hands open, face controlled. Ranger moved to Claire's side and leaned against her knee with enough weight to remind her that she was in Maine, not Providence. The call went to voicemail. A second later the phone chimed. Daniel had said not to play messages in front of the children unless necessary. Claire looked at Lily. Take Grace to the bedroom. I am not a baby. No, you are a child, and I am still your mother. Lily's mouth tightened, but something in Claire's voice, not anger, just the return of rightful authority, made her obey. When the door closed, Claire played the message on speaker for Nathan Owen, who was still there, and Miriam, who had arrived with chicken stew and a claim that dinner did not count as interference. Peter's voice filled the kitchen, polished and wounded. He said he was worried. He said Claire was making choices grief had twisted. He said Adam would be ashamed of the confusion she had brought upon his daughters. He said he wanted them safe with family. He never raised his voice. He did not need to. Every sentence was shaped to sound reasonable to anyone who had not lived under it. Claire felt herself shrinking until Miriam's hand closed over hers. There, Miriam said when it ended. That is a man polishing a knife and calling it silverware. Nathan's eyes were dark. Owen looked at him sharply. Nate, I am here. Stay here. Nathan breathed once, then twice. Ranger pressed against his leg, now splitting his loyalty without hesitation. Claire watched Nathan put one hand on the dog's head, instead of reaching for his coat, his keys, anything that would turn feeling into motion. We send it to Daniel, Nathan said. His voice was rough but present. We document. Owen nodded slowly. Good. Claire realized then that the fight was not only with Peter, it was with every old pattern fear invited into the room. Peter wanted Nathan to become exactly the man Peter accused him of being, dangerous, reactive, ruled by old violence. Nathan, standing in a kitchen with a dog against his thigh and a frightened woman beside him, chose the harder thing. He stayed. Later, after the children slept, Claire found him in the boat room, sanding a strip of cedar until it was smooth as cloth. What are you making? She asked. Nothing if it turns ugly. That is evasive. A soft bed frame for Ranger. Lily said old dog should have the good blanket. Claire stepped closer, heart aching at the ordinary sweetness of it. She told you about Adam saying that. Yes. You remembered. He kept sanding. I remember things children say when they are testing whether adults do. Claire sat on an overturned crate. The workshop smelled of cedar oil and cold iron. Peter wants to make you angry. He is good at his hobby. And you... Nathan stopped sanding. I am good at not giving people what they want when I know it will hurt someone else. That answer held more history than Claire could ask about yet. She nodded. Then we keep not giving him what he wants. The snow outside thickened. Inside, cedar dust gathered like pale gold on Nathan's hands. 2 days later, Peter appeared with a lawyer and a child welfare request printed on expensive paper. The visit did not come at midnight. Men like Peter preferred daylight when they wanted witnesses to mistake control for concern. His black SUV climbed the plowed road just after lunch, glossy and wrong against the snowbanks, and stopped near the porch with Rhode Island plates framed by dealership chrome.
Claire saw it from the kitchen window and felt every sound leave the house. "Lily," she said. "Back room with Grace. Lock the door." Lily did not ask if it was Peter. She took Grace's hand. Grace grabbed Ranger's collar. Ranger looked at Nathan. Nathan looked at Claire. "Ranger goes with them," Claire said. The dog moved at once, old hips stiff but purpose clear, escorting the girls down the hall. Nathan did not reach for a weapon. He did not square up like a man in a movie. He took his phone, called Daniel, put it in his shirt pocket with the line open,
and walked to the porch with both hands visible. Claire stood beside him because she was finished being a woman spoken about from behind curtains. Owen's rescue SUV rolled in behind Peter before the lawyer had fully stepped out, and Miriam's truck appeared at the bottom of the road a minute later, fishtailing slightly because righteous anger had never improved her driving. Peter Walsh looked exactly as Claire remembered, and not at all as she remembered, handsome in a narrow way, dark coat, tailored hair, neat smile arranged for public use. "Claire," he said, as if greeting a sister-in-law after church. "Thank God, I have been worried sick." Her voice did not shake. That surprised her. "You were told to contact my lawyer. I am here with counsel." The woman beside him introduced herself as Marcia Bell and stated they were requesting a welfare check and voluntary presentation of the children pending emergency review. Nathan listened. Daniel's voice murmured in his pocket. "Do not agree. Ask for written authority." Nathan repeated, "Please provide the written authority requiring access today." Peter's smile thinned. "Mr. Cole, I appreciate your service, but this is family business. Those girls are in my home. That is precisely the concern." Claire felt Nathan's stillness change temperature. Ranger barked once from inside the back room, deep and controlled. Grace must have moved, or Lily must have whispered. Peter's eyes flicked to the sound. "You keep a military dog around traumatized children, a retired working dog," Nathan said. "Documented and evaluated. And you expect a court to believe this is stable?" Peter turned to Claire, voice softening. "Claire, come home. We can fix this. Adam would not want you living in a stranger's house, married in haste to a man with combat issues." The words were chosen to wound 3 people at once. Claire stepped forward. "Adam would want his daughter safe." Peter's smile faltered. "From whom?" Before Claire could answer, the back room door opened. Lily stood in the hallway, pale and furious, with Ranger beside her and Grace behind the dog. "From you," Lily said. Claire's heart lurched. Nathan did not move toward her. "Good man," Claire thought wildly. "Good man." Lily took one more step, enough to be seen, but not enough for Peter to reach. "You made Grace hide under the bed. You took Mama's door lock. You said if Mama did not listen, you would split us up." Marcia Bell's face changed. Peter's did not fully, but something ugly shifted behind his eyes. "Lily, sweetheart, you are confused." "No," Lily said. "I am 8. That is different." Miriam made a sound that might have been a prayer or a threat. Owen positioned himself near the porch steps, calm, witness, phone camera visible but not intrusive. Daniel's voice through Nathan's pocket said, "We have enough. End contact." Nathan nodded. "Mr. Walsh, you need to leave. Any further contact goes through counsel." Peter looked at Claire for one long moment, and she saw rage under the polish. The same old entitlement denied its favorite room. Then he smiled again for the lawyer, the witnesses, the daylight. "This is not over." Nathan's reply was quiet. "No, but it is documented." Peter returned to his SUV. As it backed down the snowy road, Grace stepped from behind Ranger and placed a folded drawing in Nathan's hand. It showed a black car outside a house and a dog drawn as a bright wall between the car and 2 small girls. Nathan closed his fingers around the paper with care. Claire reached for Lily, and Lily let herself be held for 3 whole breaths before pulling away. I was not supposed to come out, she muttered. Claire kissed her hair. No. Are you mad? Claire held her tighter. I am proud and terrified. Mothers can be two things. Ranger leaned against Grace. Grace looked up at Nathan and whispered so softly only those nearest heard. Bad car. Nathan crouched, eyes level with hers, voice steady, though his face had gone pale. It is gone now. Snow drifted down between them and the road where Peter had been. Gone, Claire knew, was not the same as finished. But the house still stood. The children were still inside its light, and Nathan had not become the weapon Peter wanted. That felt like a victory small enough to fit in a child's hand and large enough to keep. The weeks between Peter's porch visit and the Portland hearing stretched like a frozen rope, every day pulled tight enough to hum. Snow fell, thawed, crusted over and fell again, layering Camden in white and gray, while the sea kept its restless black shoulder against the rocks below the rescue station. Claire began to understand that legal danger had its own weather. It did not always arrive loudly. It drifted in through envelopes, voicemail notifications, certified mail, polite requests with sharp edges, and the small pause before Daniel Keene said, "Now do not panic." Whenever a lawyer began with those words, Claire found panic had already taken a chair. Daniel filed in Maine. Peter's attorney filed objections in Rhode Island. The states talked in documents. Claire learned phrases she never wanted in her mouth: emergency jurisdiction, best interests, temporary custody, home study, trauma-informed interview, service-connected disability. Each phrase sounded bloodless until it touched a child. Lily had nightmares she pretended were stomach aches. Grace drew more than ever, filling paper bags, receipts the backs of old boat invoices. Nathan sacrificed without complaint. Her pictures changed by degrees. The black car appeared at the bottom of the hill, then farther away, then behind a line of trees. Ranger appeared in almost all of them, sometimes too large for the page, sometimes wearing a lighthouse beam like a collar. Nathan appeared as a tall rectangle at first, then a person with arms, then one day with a small square over his heart. Claire asked Lily what it meant. Lily, who had become Grace's translator in all things, said, "She says he has a light too, but it is under his shirt." Nathan overheard that from the sink and dropped a spoon into the dishwater. Owen laughed softly until Nathan threatened to assign him snowblower repair. Humor came like that now, in small contraband pieces passed under the table, while fear inspected the room. Miriam visited twice a week, sometimes with food, sometimes with gossip, sometimes with no excuse except that she had decided absence was rude. Reverend Avery helped enroll Lily in remote school until transportation could be arranged. Andrea Mills scheduled a second visit and recommended a child therapist in Rockland. Mr. Alvarez sent a card from the hospital with a drawing of a tow truck wearing angel wings, which made Lily laugh so hard she had to sit down. Life rudely and beautifully kept making demands unrelated to terror. Socks needed washing, bread needed slicing. Ranger needed his joint medicine hidden in cheese because he had developed the moral conviction that pills were enemy agents. Nathan needed sleep and refused to admit it until he put the coffee grounds in the refrigerator and the eggs in the mug cabinet. Claire found them and said nothing of which was perhaps the kindest form of marriage available that morning. The evaluation Nathan dreaded most took place on a Tuesday at the VA clinic in Togus, 2 hours inland, through roads bordered by snow-packed fields and dark pines. Peter's filing had framed Nathan's service as danger, and although Daniel called the claim ugly, he also called it predictable. "We answer it cleanly," he said. "Treatment records, counselor statement, Owen's professional observation, Ranger's retirement documentation, no defensiveness, no shame." Nathan had nodded, but in the days before the appointment he became so quiet that even Ranger seemed irritated by it. The dog followed him from room to room with an expression that said, in every language older than words, "Stop going away while standing here." Claire went with him to the clinic because he asked without asking. He stood by the truck keys for 3 full minutes, then said, "You do not have to come." She answered, "I know," and put on her coat. Miriam stayed with the girls. The drive began in silence, the kind Nathan used as weatherproofing. Claire watched trees pass each branch, holding snow like a line of unmailed letters. Halfway there, Nathan pulled into a rest area and parked without explanation. His hand stayed on the wheel. His knuckles were white. Ranger in the back seat rose and pushed his head between the front seat's nose against Nathan's shoulder. Claire waited. Waiting, she was learning, could be an active form of courage. Finally, Nathan said, "I hate that he gets to use this." "Peter?" "My head, my service, Ranger, all of it. He takes the things that kept people alive and writes them down like they are proof I should not be near children." Claire looked at his profile. The scar under his jaw, the lines grief had put beside his mouth. "Then tell the truth about them before he gets to define them." He gave a humorless breath. "You make it sound simple." "No, I make it sound possible, because simple is insulting." Ranger's tag clicked as he shifted. Nathan closed his eyes. "There was a night overseas," he said, then stopped. Claire touched the sleeve of his coat, not his hand, leaving him room. "You do not owe me details." "Good. I do not have clean ones." "Then give me the part that matters." The truck heater hummed. Outside, a plow passed in a spray of salt. "I brought men home," Nathan said. "Not all of them. Enough to be called good at my job. Not enough to make it quiet." Claire absorbed that. No images, no questions that would turn his pain into a story for her curiosity. "Adam was called brave after he died," she said. "People said it like bravery made the dying easier to accept. It did not. Some words are too neat for what they are asked to hold." Nathan's shoulders lowered a fraction. Ranger breathed warm against his neck. "Elise used to say I treated feelings like suspicious packages." "Smart woman." "She was." He opened his eyes. "If the counselor says I am not fit, then we listen to what she actually says, not what fear says in her voice." He looked at her then, really looked, as if noticing that she had crossed more than state lines to sit beside him. "You are stubborn. You hired me under false pretenses. That was the one qualification I described accurately." It earned her a real smile, small and gone quickly, but real enough to warm the cab by a degree. The counselor, Dr. Elaine Mercer, had silver hair cut short, wire-rimmed glasses, and the unhurried presence of someone who knew silence did not have to be filled to be useful. She had treated Nathan intermittently for 2 years after Elise died, and after his final deployment-related symptoms worsened. Claire sat in the waiting room with Ranger, because Nathan went in alone first. Veterans came and went around her, some old, some younger than she expected, all carrying invisible weather. Ranger lay at her feet wearing a vest that said, "Retired MWD, do not pet without permission." 3 people read it and asked anyway. Ranger ignored them with aristocratic patience. Claire spent the hour making a list for Daniel, then remaking it because the first list looked frightened. When Dr. Mercer invited her in, Nathan sat near the window, shoulders tight, but eyes present. The counselor asked Claire what she had observed. Claire could have said many things badly. She chose care. "He startles at certain sounds, especially sudden metal strikes or engines backfiring. He checks doors and windows more than most people. He sleeps lightly. When he gets overwhelmed, he goes quiet before he knows he is doing it. Ranger helps. Routines help. Being useful helps, though sometimes he tries to disappear inside usefulness." Dr. Mercer wrote that down. Nathan stared at the floor. Has he ever frightened the children? By existing at first, Claire said honestly. Nathan's head lifted. He is large, quiet, and male. My daughters had reasons to watch that carefully, but he has never used that size against them. He asks permission. He gives space. He corrects himself when words come out too sharp. Lily trusts slowly, and he lets slow be slow. Grace speaks more around Ranger than anyone, and Nathan has never pushed her. Dr. Mercer turned to Nathan. That last part matters. Nathan swallowed. I did not do much. Restraint is doing something. Claire watched that sentence reach him in a place praise could not. The counselor agreed to write a statement. Nathan had service-connected PTSD, was engaged in treatment, had no history of domestic violence or uncontrolled behavior, used appropriate coping strategies, and had a stable support network including Ranger Owen, Miriam, and now Claire. It would not guarantee anything. Nothing did. But it answered Peter's ugliness without pretending Nathan was made of stone. On the drive home, Nathan stopped at a roadside diner, because Ranger's dignity had survived the clinic and deserved bacon, according to Claire. They ate grilled cheese and tomato soup in a booth by the window while snow dusted the parking lot. Nathan broke a piece of bacon into his napkin. Do not tell Owen. That you feed your highly trained military dog contraband? That I ordered extra. Claire looked at him across the table, at the man Peter wanted to flatten into danger, at the tired eyes, the careful hands, the old grief sitting beside new responsibility. Your secret is safe. No more lies in the house, he reminded her. We are in a diner. Legal loophole. Ranger accepted the bacon with solemn professionalism. Claire laughed. It startled both of them. Nathan smiled into his soup. That night, the old rescue station felt almost peaceful until Ranger found the device under the porch rail. It happened after dinner, after Lily finished a reading assignment with theatrical size, after Grace placed a new drawing on the refrigerator using a magnet shaped like a lobster Miriam had brought, after Nathan successfully hid Ranger's pill in cheese, and Ranger successfully ate the cheese while spitting the pill onto Nathan's boot. Claire was washing mugs when the dog rose from his bed, ears forward, no bark. That made Nathan pay attention faster than a bark would have. Ranger went to the front door and sniffed along the threshold. Nathan lifted a hand, quieting the room without a word. Lily froze. Grace slid off her chair and moved to Claire. Nathan turned on the porch light but did not open the door immediately. He called Owen, then the sheriff's non-emergency line, then Daniel. Only after Owen arrived from his place 10 minutes away did Nathan step onto the porch with Ranger on leash. Claire watched from the window, heart beating in her throat. The men moved slowly, not searching like heroes in a story, but like adults preserving evidence. Ranger led them to the left rail, where a small black device had been taped beneath the wood, half hidden by snow crust. Owen photographed it before anyone touched it. The deputy who arrived 20 minutes later bagged it and asked careful questions. It was a recorder, maybe with a transmitter, maybe not. No one said Peter's name first. They did not have to. Lily stood in the hallway in her pajamas, face pale with fury. He put ears on our house! Claire crossed to her, but Lily stepped back, not from her mother, from the size of what she felt. He is not allowed. No, Claire said. He is not. Grace began to cry without sound, which was somehow worse than sobbing. Ranger came inside and went straight to her, pressing his head under her small hand. She clutched his fur and made one broken whisper. Dark. Nathan crouched several feet away. The dark was outside, he said. Ranger found it. Grace shook her head hard, tears slipping down her cheeks. Inside. The word was clearer than Claire expected, sharp with terror. Peter had made outside and inside feel the same. That had always been his gift. Nathan looked at Claire, then at the deputy, then back to Grace. Then we put it back outside, he said. He stood, took a roll of painter's tape from the junk drawer, and with Claire's nod, taped a piece of Grace's lighthouse drawing to the inside of the front door. Not as evidence, not as magic, as a declaration for a child who spoke in images first. "Inside has light," he said. Grace stared at the drawing through tears. Lily came to stand beside her. "And a dog," Lily added fiercely. Ranger sneezed. Owen said, "And unfortunately, Owen." Lily gave him a wet glare. "You are not in the drawing." A devastating review. Even the deputy smiled. Later, after statements were taken and the house quieted again, Claire found Nathan sitting on the bottom stair, head in his hands, Ranger pressed against his knees. "He was here," Nathan said. "Or someone he sent, close enough to touch the house. But he did not get in. That cannot be enough." Claire sat beside him, leaving a little space, the kind he always gave her. "Tonight it is." Nathan breathed unsteadily. "I want to make it impossible for him to come near them." "I know. I cannot. No. But you made it harder. Ranger made it harder. Daniel will make it harder. I will make it harder. The town will make it harder. That is how walls work when they are not made of fear." He turned his head toward her. In the low hall light, he looked older, younger, broken kind. "You sound like Miriam. That is a terrible thing to say to your wife." The word wife hung between them. This time, neither looked away quickly. Upstairs, Lily spoke softly to Grace. On the door, the lighthouse drawing held its paper light against the night. And outside, snow covered the porch rail, where the little black device had been smoothing over the mark, but not the memory. Tomorrow there would be more filings, more calls, more careful answers. Tonight, a child had named the dark, a dog had found it, and the adults had believed her. That was not the end of fear. It was the beginning of something stronger. Portland looked clean from a distance, which Claire thought was a trick cities played after snow. The brick buildings, church steeples, and narrow streets wore a white mourning cover that softened every edge, but under it, tires had churned slush into gray ridges and footsteps had pressed grit into the sidewalks. The family court building stood near a row of bare trees, square and official, with windows that reflected a pale sky instead of the people walking toward it. Claire sat in Daniel Keene's parked car with her hands folded around a paper cup of coffee she had not tasted. Nathan sat in the front passenger seat, suit jacket buttoned, face still, Ranger's leash looped around his wrist. The court had not permitted Ranger in the main courtroom as a service animal because he was not certified for grace in that legal category. But Daniel had arranged for him to wait in a designated room with Owen until the child interview if the judge allowed it. Every allowance had to be asked for. Every comfort had to be translated into a rule. Lily sat beside Claire in a blue cardigan, hair brushed smooth, jaw set for war. Grace sat between them, holding her drawing folder and the ribbon tag from Ranger's old harness. She had spoken 4 words that morning. "Where is Ranger going?" Nathan had answered carefully. "Close, not gone." That had satisfied her enough to climb into the car, but not enough to release the tag. Miriam had driven down separately with Reverend Avery, and Andrea Mills both prepared to testify if called. Owen followed in his rescue SUV, transporting Ranger like visiting royalty and complaining that the dog had more legal paperwork than he did. Nobody laughed much. Humor that morning had to walk quietly. Daniel opened the driver's door and turned to them. "I want to repeat the shape of today. This is an emergency jurisdiction and temporary custody hearing. The judge is not deciding the entire future, but what happens now matters. Peter will present himself as reasonable. Let him. We do not chase every insult. We answer with facts." Claire nodded. "If he says I abducted them, I object and respond. If he brings up Nathan's service, we respond with records and Dr. Mercer's statement. If he asks to see the girls..."
Daniel looked at Lily, then Grace. We oppose direct contact. If the judge wants to hear from either child, we request trauma-informed conditions. Lily's written statement is strong. Grace's therapist letter and drawings may be enough, but be prepared. Lily lifted her chin. I can talk. Claire turned. You do not have to, I know. That is why it counts if I do. Nathan looked back from the front seat. He did not tell her she was brave. Lily hated compliments that sounded like adults making use of her pain. He only said, You can stop at any time. Lily held his gaze, then nodded once. Grace leaned against Claire. Outside,
Peter Walsh crossed the sidewalk with his attorney, Marcia Bell. He wore a dark overcoat, polished shoes unsuitable for ice, and the same concerned expression he had worn on the porch. He saw them in the car and raised one hand, a small, sad greeting for any watching stranger. Claire felt the old shrinking begin then. Lily's fingers slid into hers. On the other side, Grace pressed the cold metal tag into Claire's palm. Nathan opened his door. Winter air entered sharp and real. Time, Daniel said. The courtroom was smaller than Claire expected, and warmer than was comfortable, with fluorescent lights humming above polished benches and a flag standing in the corner as if it had seen too many families try to explain love to law. Judge Margaret Holloway had silver-brown hair, a narrow face, and the kind of quiet that made people lower their voices without being asked. She began by stating the filings, the presence of overlapping state concerns, and the temporary nature of the hearing. Claire tried to listen like a responsible adult. Her body listened like a mother. Where were the exits? How close was Peter? Could Grace see him? Was Lily breathing? Where was Nathan's hand? Peter sat at the opposite table, not looking directly at the girls, which somehow made him more visible. His attorney spoke first. Marcia Bell was skilled. Claire hated how fair she sounded. She described Peter as a grieving uncle, concerned for his late brother's daughters, after their mother abruptly removed them from Rhode Island, cut contact, and entered into a rapid marriage with a man she barely knew. She did not call Nathan dangerous outright. She placed words near each other and let the judge see the shadow former special operations, retired military dog trauma treatment isolated coastal home. Claire felt Nathan go still beside her. Daniel's hand moved subtly on the table weight. Marcia continued, saying, Peter had resources, family ties, a stable home, and willingness to support reunification. Reunification. Claire nearly laughed from the wrong part of herself. Peter had made home something to escape, and now the language wanted to reunite them with it. Daniel rose when it was his turn, and did not try to sound more wounded than Peter. He sounded prepared. He laid out Claire's flight without dressing it up. Yes, she left quickly. Yes, she crossed state lines. Yes, she wrote a misleading letter to obtain work and lodging. Then he said why documented intimidation, financial pressure, threats to separate the children, Grace's loss of speech, Lily's statement, Peter's own voicemail. The recorder found under Nathan's porch, the welfare visit triggered immediately after Peter located them. Desperation is not proof of unfitness, Daniel said. Sometimes it is the final evidence that a parent has exhausted every polite avenue and chosen survival. Judge Holloway made notes. Claire kept breathing. Nathan testified after Andrea and Owen. He walked to the witness chair with the deliberate calm he used around frightened children. Marcia asked about his service, his diagnosis, his dog, his relationship with Claire, the speed of the marriage. Nathan did not posture. He did not hide. I have PTSD, he said. I am in treatment. I have routines. I have support. Ranger is retired, trained, and under control. I did not seek children in my home, but they came in danger, and I chose to help. Marcia asked whether he considered himself emotionally equipped to parent traumatized children. Nathan paused. Claire saw the cost of answering truthfully in a room where Peter wanted every truth to become a weapon. I consider myself responsible for becoming equipped, he said, every day. I do not believe children need a perfect man. They need a safe one who tells the truth and keeps learning. The judge looked up then, just briefly. Peter looked down. Claire testified next. She had imagined tears collapse words tangling around old fear. Instead, she found a strange calm waiting for her in the chair. The kind that comes when a person has rehearsed survival for so long that truth finally has muscle. Daniel asked about Adam, about the months after his death, about Peter's increasing control. Claire kept the language safe and clear. She did not describe every night. She did not turn memory into spectacle. She said Peter removed privacy, monitored finances, threatened custody, spoke in ways that made the children afraid, and created an environment where Grace stopped speaking and Lily felt responsible for adult safety. She said she left because she believed delay would give Peter more power to separate them. Marcia cross-examined, gently at first, then with sharper edges hidden under concern. Mrs. Cole, you lied to Mr. Cole to obtain shelter, correct? Yes. You exposed your children to winter travel during a severe storm. I traveled before the storm was forecast to close roads. Conditions worsened. When emergency happened, I sought the nearest safe shelter. A shelter belonging to a man you did not know. A man whose references I checked through Miriam Doyle and whose job posting offered lodging. You married him within weeks. After legal threats made clear that my children needed stability recognized by institutions that had not protected us quickly enough. Marcia paused. Do you love Mr. Cole? The courtroom shifted. Claire felt Nathan go very still. Daniel rose. Relevance, Judge Holloway considered. Limited. I will allow a brief answer. Claire looked at Nathan. The question felt both too early and too late. She thought of his hands leaving space of the tray in the hallway of Ranger outside the girl's door, of the scarf of him stopping anger at the edge of action, again and again. I trust him, she said. I respect him. I am beginning to love him in the way people love when they are still learning where the broken places are. But I did not marry him to decorate my fear. I married him because he offered my daughters safety without asking them to pay for it with silence. No one moved. Even Marcia seemed to need a moment. Peter watched Claire with an expression that had lost its polish around the edges. Daniel then submitted Lily's written statement. The judge read it silently first. Her face did not change, but her pen stopped twice. Marcia requested to question Lily directly. Claire's hand tightened. Daniel objected, requesting that if the child were heard, it be in chambers or through a child specialist. Judge Holloway looked at Lily. Miss Bennett, do you wish to speak today? Lily stood before Claire could decide whether to stop her. Her cardigan sleeve had a tiny blue icing stain from wedding cake that had survived the wash. I want to speak if I do not have to look at him. Judge Holloway nodded slowly. That can be arranged. Peter's attorney objected to procedure. The judge overruled her in a voice that did not get louder. Lily followed a court officer to a small adjoining room with Andrea Mills. Claire watched the door close and felt as if her heart had been carried out without a coat. Lily spoke for 11 minutes. Claire did not hear the words then, only later summarized with care by the judge and Andrea. That was mercy. She said Peter was nice when people watched and different when doors closed. She said he made Mama smaller. She said Grace stopped singing. She said she called him once from Maine because she thought maybe grown-ups would tell the truth if another grown-up was listening, and she was sorry. She said Nathan was not easy, but he was the same in rooms and hallways, and that mattered. She said Ranger did not make her unafraid, but he made fear stand farther away. When Lily returned, she looked emptied out and older. Claire reached for her. This time Lily came without resistance and buried her face against Claire's shoulder. Judge Holloway then surprised everyone by asking whether Grace wished to share her drawings.
Not testify. Share. Claire looked at Grace, who had not moved from her chair except to press Ranger's tag to her lips. Only if she wants to,
Claire said. Grace looked toward the door leading to the waiting room where Ranger was with Owen. The judge noticed. Would the dog help? Marcia rose. Daniel rose. The judge lifted a hand. I am not inviting an animal circus into my courtroom. I am asking whether a child who has difficulty speaking can be made comfortable enough to communicate. After a brief conference, Ranger was allowed into a side room, not the main courtroom, with Owen holding the leash, Andrea present, and both attorneys observing from the doorway. Grace walked there, holding Claire's hand. Nathan did not follow until Grace turned and looked at him. Then he came too, staying near the wall. Ranger greeted Grace by lowering his head until his forehead touched her chest. She exhaled for what seemed like the first time all day. Judge Holloway sat at a small table instead of behind a bench. You draw beautifully, she said. Grace placed the folder on the table. Her fingers trembled. The judge looked through the pictures slowly. Doors, dark cars, the black figure outside, Ranger as a wall, Ranger as a lighthouse, the rescue station in a beam of light. She did not ask leading questions. She asked, Can you tell me about this one? Grace said nothing. She touched the dark figure, then she touched her throat. Claire's eyes filled. The judge waited. Ranger's tag clicked. Grace whispered, He made the dark come inside. The sentence was soft, but it landed in every adult like a bell. Judge Holloway did not ask for more. She simply nodded. Thank you for telling me. Grace leaned into Ranger, spent. Nathan's face had gone pale, but he remained still, giving the child the gift of not needing to manage his feelings too. Back in the courtroom, Peter looked unsettled for the first time, not defeated, exposed. Judge Holloway announced she would review the submissions before issuing temporary orders within 48 hours. Until then, the children would remain with Claire in Maine, no direct contact from Peter, and all communication through counsel. It was not final. It was not enough. It was more than they had that morning. As they left the courthouse, Peter stood near the hallway with Marcia, hands in his coat pockets. You cannot keep them behind a dog forever, he said quietly as Nathan passed. Nathan stopped. Claire felt the old terror flare, waiting for anger to become Peter's proof. Ranger stood between them, calm as stone. Nathan looked at Peter and said, No, we keep them behind truth. Then he walked on. Outside, snow began to fall over Portland, small flakes dissolving on the courthouse steps. Grace held Ranger's leash with Owen's hand over hers. Lily walked beside Claire, exhausted but upright. Nathan carried the drawing folder under one arm like evidence, like scripture, like something rescued from water. The city noise moved around them. For the first time in months, Claire felt it move around them, not through them. The 48 hours after the Portland hearing passed with the strange cruelty of waiting rooms, though the family was back inside the rescue station and not on any vinyl chair beneath fluorescent lights. Snow softened the hill the harbor bell spoke through fog, and every ordinary task became a place for fear to hide. Claire burned toast because she was listening for the phone. Nathan tightened a loose stair rail that did not need tightening because his hands wanted a problem with screws. Lily opened her school tablet and read the same paragraph 4 times without turning the page. Grace drew circles around Ranger's paws until the dog looked at Nathan with exhausted patience, as if asking whether service to children included becoming stationary. Miriam came over with chowder and an apple pie and declared no court had jurisdiction over dessert. Owen brought news that the recorder found on the porch had been sent for analysis and that the deputy had taken the matter seriously after Daniel used the phrase pattern of surveillance in a tone that made paperwork sit up straighter. Reverend Avery called to say people at church were praying, but not in the noisy way that turned private pain into public gossip. Mr. Alvarez sent a second card, this one written by his wife, thanking Claire for helping him and adding that any man chasing a mother through a snowstorm should be made to shovel the interstate with a teaspoon. Lily asked if that was legal. Nathan said, probably not. Miriam said legality was not the only measure of good ideas. Grace smiled at that, a small flash that vanished into Ranger's fur. The phone finally rang on the second afternoon while Claire was folding towels in the kitchen, Daniel's number. Everyone froze except Ranger, who rose because everyone else had frozen. Nathan answered on speaker. Daniel did not waste time. Temporary order granted. The children remained in Maine with Claire. Peter was denied visitation pending further review. No direct contact. A guardian ad litem would be assigned. A full hearing would follow after evidence exchange between states. The judge specifically noted concerns regarding Peter's conduct, the recording device, Lily's statement, Grace's communication, and the stability of the current home. Claire sat down on the nearest chair before her body could choose the floor. Lily whispered, "We stay." Daniel's voice softened. For now, yes, for now. The words had a fence around them, but a fence was still more than open road. Grace looked at Nathan. Ranger stays? It was the clearest question she had asked yet. Nathan swallowed. Ranger stays. The dog wagged once, accepting the legal system's cooperation. Claire laughed and cried at the same time, which alarmed Lily, until Miriam said grown women leaked under pressure, and it was nothing to stare at. Nathan stood by the counter, gripping the edge. Claire watched him receive good news like a man uncertain whether he was allowed to put down weight. She crossed to him and placed her hand over his. In front of everyone, not because marriage required it, but because relief needed somewhere to go. His fingers turned and held hers. The temporary order should have brought peace, and in pieces it did. Lily slept 6 straight hours the next night and woke furious that no one had praised her for it. Grace ate 2 pancakes, then drew syrup on Ranger's nose because she said he needed breakfast in the picture too. Nathan finished Ranger's cedar bed frame and placed it near the stove, with Adam's good blanket rule observed in full. Ranger sniffed it, circled twice, and lay down on the floor beside it. He is protesting craftsmanship, Owen said when he saw. Nathan stared at the dog. I sanded that for 3 nights. Ranger yawned. Lily considered the situation. Maybe he likes knowing he has it even if he does not use it. Nathan looked at her, then at the bed, then at the dog. That is annoyingly wise. I am 8. I stand corrected. That became the first truly easy laugh in the house. Not loud, not free of fear, but unforced. Yet underneath the laughter, Peter remained. He obeyed the no-contact order for 9 days. On the 10th, a package arrived at Miriam's shop addressed to Lily and Grace. Miriam did not bring it to the house unopened. She called Daniel, who called the sheriff, who opened it with gloves while Miriam stood nearby, muttering that cowardice had excellent postage. Inside were Adam's firefighter badge, a framed family photo from before his death, and a letter from Peter, written in large, gentle handwriting for the girls. Daniel read it first and told Claire not to. That made Claire read it anyway, after the children went to bed. Peter wrote that their father would want them with real family. He wrote that strangers could be kind for a season. He wrote that blood remembered what law forgot. He wrote nothing that directly violated the order if read by someone determined not to understand harm. Claire sat at the kitchen table with the letter flat beneath her palm, Adam's badge beside it, and felt the old guilt rise so suddenly it nearly had a voice. Nathan came in from the porch and saw her face. He did not ask whether she was all right. They were past useless questions. He sat across from her. What did he send? Claire pushed the badge toward him. Nathan touched it with 2 fingers, reverent. Adams? Yes. Do the girls know? Not yet. Do you want them to? Claire looked toward the hall. I want them to have their father. I do not want Peter's fingerprints on the giving. Nathan nodded. Then we clean the gift of the giver. How? You tell them where it came from, when they can bear it. But first you tell them who Adam was without Peter in the room. Claire's eyes stung. You make it sound possible again. You accused me of that first. She smiled despite herself. He looked at the badge. Lilang should have this someday. She is already carrying too much. Then someday can wait. In the morning, Claire placed Adam's badge in a small shadow box with a photograph she chose, not Peter's one, where Adam held both girls in the backyard, with Grace laughing on his shoulders and Lily missing a front tooth. She set it on the shelf near Grace's drawings. Lily stared at it for a long time. Peter sent it. Claire did not lie. Yes. Lily's face hardened. Claire added, but your father's love did not belong to Peter. We can keep what is true and refuse the hook. Lily's eyes filled. Dad would like Ranger. Nathan, who had been pouring coffee, stopped. Claire touched Lily's hair. He would. Grace pointed to the badge, then to Ranger, then whispered, helpers. Nathan turned away for a moment. Ranger finally climbed onto the cedar bed that night. No one said it was because Adam had been welcomed into the room. No one needed to. The guardian ad litem, a woman named Patricia Sloan, came in late March when the snow along the road had hardened into dirty walls and the first gulls returned to the harbor with rude enthusiasm. Patricia was older than Andrea, sharper in her questions, and less easily warmed by coffee. Claire liked her for that. The girls did not need someone charmed, they needed someone accurate. Patricia interviewed Claire, Nathan, Lily, Miriam, Owen, Reverend Avery, and by choice and with no pressure, Grace, through drawings and short questions. She inspected the bedrooms, the locks, the refrigerator, Ranger's records, Nathan's treatment plan, Claire's employment tasks, school arrangements, and the emergency plan taped inside the pantry door. She also asked Nathan a question that made the room colder. If this marriage began as legal protection, what prevents it from collapsing once the legal threat passes? Claire's breath stopped. Nathan took his time. Nothing automatic. Patricia waited. Marriage is not a lock, Nathan said. I know that. Claire knows that. We sleep in separate rooms because trust is not paperwork. We make decisions together because the children need consistency. If someday Claire decides this marriage does not serve her or the girls, I will not punish her for leaving. I would still support the girls' safety within whatever legal role I am allowed. Patricia wrote. And if you fall in love? Nathan looked at Claire, and there it was again, that unfinished word standing between them with snow on its shoulders. Then I hope we handle that honestly too. Claire felt heat rise to her face. Lily, who had been told not to listen and had therefore become a decorative plant near the doorway, made a gagging noise. Patricia's eyebrow lifted. You have a comment, Lily? Lily stepped fully into the room, resigned to her own courage. Adults are weird when they like each other. Patricia's mouth twitched. Document it. That evening, Claire found Nathan in the workshop, fitting a frame around Grace's lighthouse drawing. He had sanded the wood smooth and left the grain visible. Patricia asked a fair question, Claire said. Yes. About what keeps this from collapsing? He did not look up. What did you think of my answer? I thought it sounded honorable. I also thought it sounded like you were building me an exit before I asked for one. His hands stilled. Is that bad? No. But exits are not the only thing a house needs. He looked at her then. The workshop smelled of sawdust and the sea through gaps in the old wall. What else? Claire stepped closer. A table where people sit because they want to, a window that opens, a place for old photographs, someone willing to say when they are scared before it comes out sideways. Nathan's throat moved. I am scared most of the time now. Of Peter? Of wanting this. The words entered the room quietly and changed its dimensions. Claire did not move into them too fast. She had learned from Ranger, perhaps, or from Nathan himself, that frightened creatures should be given space to choose. I am scared too. Of me? No. She surprised herself with the certainty of losing what is starting. Nathan set the frame down. Outside, the harbor bell sounded through fog. Inside, he reached for her hand and stopped, halfway asking, without words. She met him there. Their fingers joined above Grace's drawing above the lighthouse that did not exist and somehow kept guiding them anyway. Peter's next move came not through a package or a call, but through a private investigator who parked at the public overlook below the rescue station with a long lens and a thermos, as if winter surveillance were a hobby for men with poor imagination. Owen spotted him first while driving back from a call. He did not confront him. He photographed the car plate location in time, then called Daniel and the sheriff. Nathan hated not confronting him. Claire could see it in the way he paced the kitchen exactly 7 steps each direction, Ranger following until both of them looked like a strange, anxious parade. He is watching the girls, Nathan said. From a public road, Daniel replied through the phone, which is unpleasant, not automatically illegal. The no-contact order may help if he is acting on Peter's behalf. We document. We do not hand them an incident where you appear aggressive. Nathan closed his eyes. I know. Owen, on speaker from his truck, said, Knowing and liking are divorced. Miriam, present because apparently she could smell conflict through snow, added, and not amicably. Claire stood at the window with the curtains half drawn. Lily had noticed the car too, and was pretending not to be afraid by reorganizing the bookshelf alphabetically, then by color, then by what she called suspicious author names. Grace had stopped drawing for the first time in weeks. She sat under the table with Ranger's head in her lap, the pencil untouched beside her shoe. That, more than the man at the overlook, moved Nathan. He stopped pacing. He looked at Grace, then at the phone. What can we do that is not confrontation? Daniel paused. Live visibly and safely? Let the sheriff make contact if appropriate. Keep the girls away from windows. Continue routines. Do not let surveillance dictate chaos. Nathan hung up after agreeing. Then he did something Claire did not expect. He went to the pantry, took down the emergency plan, and wrote a new line at the bottom. When afraid, make soup. Lily stared. That is not an emergency plan. It is tonight. Soup does not stop investigators. Neither does alphabetizing Reverend Avery under weird hat. Lily looked at the bookshelf, offended he had noticed. It is an accurate category. Nathan put a pot on the stove. Then the system works. Claire watched him hand Lily carrots to peel, and Grace a potato to wash, watched Ranger station himself by the table as if supervising morale, watched the house choose routine over theater. It did not erase the man outside. It refused him ownership of inside. The sheriff eventually spoke to the investigator who left with the slow reluctance of someone pretending departure was his idea. Daniel later confirmed the man had been hired by Peter's firm. Another document, another mark in the pattern. That night after the girls went to bed, Claire and Nathan stood on the porch beneath a clear, hard sky. Stars hung over the bay like salt scattered on black cloth. You wanted to go down there, Claire said. Yes, why didn't you? Nathan rested both hands on the railing. Because Grace was under the table. Claire leaned her shoulder lightly against his arm. That is a good reason. He looked at her. I have had many reasons in my life. Good ones feel different. Down the hall behind them, Ranger's tag clicked as he settled outside the girls' room. Click. Quiet. Click. The sound no longer belonged only to the dog. It had become the house's second heartbeat, proof that someone was keeping watch without making fear the master. April arrived with thaw in its pockets, messy and uncertain. Snow slid from the roof in heavy sighs, gutters ticked all afternoon, and the road to Camden became a ribbon of mud bordered by exhausted white banks. The sea changed color first, lifting from iron to blue-gray, and the harbor filled with the sounds of men preparing boats, gulls complaining, engines testing ropes, knocking against masts. At the rescue station, spring did not make fear disappear. It only gave it different shoes. Peter's attorneys pushed for a fuller evidentiary hearing in Portland, arguing that temporary orders had been based on emotion and inadequate review. Daniel expected it. Patricia Sloan submitted an interim report strongly favoring continued placement with Claire, noting the children's increasing stability, Nathan's appropriate boundaries, Ranger's positive role in Grace's communication, and concerns about Peter's attempts to monitor and influence the family. Peter's side answered by questioning Patricia's objectivity, Claire's financial independence, Nathan's trauma history, and the speed of the marriage. "They are throwing everything at the windows," Miriam said at dinner. "Good thing this place was built for storms." Nathan looked at the old frames. "Actually, I need to reglaze the east side. Do not ruin my metaphor with maintenance." Lily asked what reglaze meant, and Nathan spent 10 minutes explaining window putty with such seriousness that Owen pretended to fall asleep into his chowder. Grace laughed. Not a full laugh, not yet, but a small, bright sound that startled the table into silence. The moment everyone noticed, she hid her face against Ranger. Nathan looked at Owen, eyes wide with something like panic and wonder. Owen whispered, "Do not make it a parade." So everyone returned to soup as if the sound had not just lit the room. Claire stirred her bowl and let tears slide silently, because looking away was sometimes how a family made room for joy. Later, Grace drew the table. This time all the chairs were full. She added Ranger under it, larger than anatomically reasonable, and wrote one careful word above his head with Lily's help. "Listen." Nathan taped the drawing beside the front door, under the lighthouse. "Inside has light," Grace whispered when he did. "And soup," Lily added. "Apparently, emergency soup." "Do not mock doctrine," Nathan said. Lily rolled her eyes. It was the most childlike thing she had done since arriving, and Claire nearly praised it, before remembering praise could make Lily self-conscious. Instead, she asked her to set out spoons. Ordinary saved them again. The full hearing began on a rainy April morning when the last dirty snow clung to shaded corners of Portland like old arguments. The courthouse smelled of wet wool and floor polish. Claire wore the green dress with a navy cardigan. Nathan wore the same suit, less like armor this time and more like a thing he had chosen to stand in. Lily carried a book she did not open. Grace carried the drawing folder and Ranger's old tag. Ranger waited with Owen in the allowed room again, though Judge Holloway had already indicated she might permit his presence during Grace's communication if needed. Peter arrived with Marcia Bell and another attorney, a man from Providence named Gerald Voss, whose smile had no weather in it. Claire saw Peter glance at the wedding band on Nathan's hand, and then at Adam's badge pinned inside Claire's bag where no one could see it but her. She had brought the badge, not as evidence, but as a reminder Adam had loved his daughters alive, not as symbols in another man's argument. The hearing was longer, more detailed, and colder than the first. Peter's side presented financial records, showing Claire had struggled after Adam's death. Daniel answered that grief and reduced income were not neglect. They presented the hasty marriage. Daniel presented the conditions Claire had set: the separate rooms, the counseling support, the community network. They presented Nathan's PTSD. Dr. Mercer testified by video, with clear, careful authority, that diagnosis was not danger and that Nathan's ongoing treatment, insight, routines, and restraint were protective factors rather than liabilities. Owen testified about Nathan's conduct during emergencies, emphasizing de-escalation, not force. Miriam testified with such contained fury that Judge Holloway asked her twice to answer only the question, and Miriam replied both times, "Yes, Your Honor, but the question is standing next to the point." Even the court reporter smiled once.
Patricia Sloan testified about the children's progress.
Lily remains hyper-vigilant, but she demonstrates increased ability to rely on adults. Grace's speech is returning in low-pressure contexts. Removing them from the current environment would likely be destabilizing. Marcia asked whether the children had bonded with Nathan because they were isolated and dependent. Patricia answered, "They have bonded because he consistently respects their boundaries. Dependency and trust are not the same thing." Claire wrote that sentence on her heart. Peter testified last before rebuttal. He spoke smoothly of family duty, his love for Adam, his concern that Claire had been manipulated by a military man with a rescue fantasy. He said he wanted only what was best for the girls. Daniel's cross-examination was quiet. He asked about the package sent despite no contact restrictions. Peter said it was sentimental, not contact. He asked about the investigator. Peter said his attorneys needed information. He asked about the recorder. Peter denied knowledge. Daniel played Peter's voicemail. He read Lily's statement. He asked whether Peter had removed the lock from Claire's bedroom door after Adam's death. Peter smiled sadly. The house was old. The lock was faulty. Daniel looked down at his notes. "Did you replace it? I did not think it necessary." "For whom?" Peter's smile faded. "Excuse me, you did not think privacy was necessary for whom?" The courtroom went very still.
The turning point came after lunch in a smaller room off the courtroom where Judge Holloway asked to meet with Grace again under the same careful conditions. Grace had not been required to speak. Claire had been clear about that until she worried she sounded like she was refusing the court. Patricia reassured her no one credible wanted to force words from a child whose silence had been part of the injury. But Grace, sitting on the bench with her drawing folder clutched to her chest, whispered, "Ranger 2." The judge allowed it. Owen brought Ranger in, and the dog, who had waited with the patience of a saint and the breath of a sardine sandwich Owen had regrettably shared, went straight to Grace and sat. Nathan stood near the wall. Claire sat beside Grace but did not hold her hand until Grace reached for it. Judge Holloway removed her robe this time and sat at the small table in a dark blouse less like an institution and more like a person carrying one.
"You do not have to tell me anything you do not want to tell me," she said. Grace nodded. "Would you like to show me today's picture?" Grace opened the folder. The drawing was different. No dark figure. No black car. It showed two houses. One was tall and narrow, with a lighthouse beam a dog at the door and smoke from the chimney. The other was square and neat, with many windows all colored black. Between them stood a little girl holding a pencil. "Which house feels safe?" the judge asked. Grace touched the lighthouse house. "Why?" Grace looked at Ranger, then at Nathan. Nathan did not speak. His restraint filled the room like another form of prayer. Grace touched the dog in the picture. "He waits." She touched the tall figure. "He waits." She touched Claire. "Mama listens." She touched Lily. "Lily watches." The judge nodded slowly. "And the other house?" Grace's finger hovered over the black windows. Her mouth trembled. Claire wanted to gather her up and end everything. Court, law, memory, all of it. Instead, she stayed because Grace had chosen to stand at the edge of words. "No waiting," Grace whispered. "Only wanting." Judge Holloway's eyes softened, but her voice remained steady. "Who wanted?" Grace did not say Peter's name. She did not need to. She drew a small dark mark beside the square house and pushed the paper away. "Done." The judge accepted that boundary immediately. "Thank you. We are done." As they left the room, Nathan stayed behind one step, not to speak to the judge, but because his face had changed in a way Claire knew now. Too much feeling, not enough road. Ranger looked back, whined softly, and Nathan came with them. In the hallway, Peter stood near the water fountain, watching.
Grace saw him before Claire could turn her away. The little girl froze. Ranger stepped in front of her, not lunging, not barking, just present. Peter raised his hands as if innocent. "I only wanted to see my nieces."
Grace pressed against Claire's leg and said, not loudly but clearly enough for Peter to hear, "No." One word. A whole locked door. Nathan did not move toward Peter. Claire did not shrink. Lily beside them whispered, "Good girl." Judge Holloway's clerk saw the exchange. So did Patricia. So did both attorneys. Peter's face tightened, then smoothed. But the moment had been witnessed. That mattered. The judge did not rule that day. Instead, she asked for one final set of documents, Peter's financial interest in Adam's insurance settlement, any communications regarding guardianship prior to Claire's departure, and records of the private investigators' hiring. Gerald Voss objected. Judge Holloway overruled him. Daniel's expression did not change, but Claire knew him well enough now to see satisfaction in the angle of his pen. Outside the courthouse, rain turned old snow into gray slush. Owen took Ranger ahead to the SUV. Miriam walked with Lily and Grace, telling them an entirely unnecessary story about a judge she had known who kept peppermints in her sleeve and once fined a man for chewing too loudly, which Lily insisted could not be true, and Miriam insisted truth was flexible around boring details. Claire and Nathan paused beneath the stone overhang while Daniel spoke with Patricia. For the first time in hours, they were almost alone. "You did well," Claire said. Nathan looked out at the rain. "Grace did well. You waiting helped her speak." He rubbed one hand over his face. "Waiting feels useless while you were doing it. It is not. I know that now." She slipped her hand into his. This time it did not feel like a question. He held on. Across the walkway, Peter watched from beneath a black umbrella. Claire saw him see their joined hands. The old fear stirred, but weaker, like a match in rain. He no longer owned every room he looked at. On the drive home, Lily fell asleep against the window before they left Portland. Grace slept with Ranger's head in her lap, the dog stretched awkwardly across the back of Owen's SUV because he had refused to ride separately after court. Nathan drove Claire's car behind them, while Claire sat beside him. They did not talk for the first hour. Rain turned to wet snow near Bath, then to flakes large as feathers by the time they reached Camden. At the rescue station, Miriam reheated stew. Owen carried sleeping Grace inside, while Ranger supervised as if the procedure had never been done correctly before. Lily woke enough to stumble to bed and mutter that courts should provide snacks with less sadness. Claire hung her coat by the door and found Nathan still outside on the porch, snow collecting in his hair. "Come in," she said. "In a minute." "No. Now." He looked at her, surprised by the firmness. She stepped onto the porch. "You do not have to stand watch until you turn into part of the railing." His mouth twitched. That sounds like a Miriam sentence. She is contagious. The harbor below was hidden by snow and fog. The lighthouse that did not exist in Grace's drawings seemed for one strange second easier to believe in than the town itself. Nathan leaned against the post. "When Grace said no, I wanted to put myself between them forever." "You did." "I mean physically. I know what you mean." Claire touched his sleeve. "But she put herself there too." "With one word. You gave her enough safety to do that. Do not take it away by deciding she needs you to become a wall every time." He absorbed that, slowly, painfully. "A lighthouse, then." Claire smiled. According to the resident artist, Ranger barked from inside, perhaps it being excluded from metaphor. Nathan opened the door. Warmth reached out. So did the smell of stew, wet dog, and crayons. He stepped inside. The snow kept falling, but it no longer felt like the world ending. It felt like weather. For the first time, weather was only weather, and tomorrow had room to arrive without asking permission. The final stretch before Judge Holloway's ruling was the hardest because it looked from the outside almost peaceful. Spring kept insisting. The snow retreated from the south side of the rescue station in ragged patches, revealing flattened grass and stones slick with meltwater. Crocuses appeared beside Miriam's shop like brave little mistakes. Boats returned to the harbor, their hulls bright against the gray docks. Tourists had not come yet, so Camden belonged to its year-round people, the ones who knew which stairs iced first and which diner waitress would refill coffee without being asked if your face looked like bad news. Claire tried to let the season teach her how to unclench. She enrolled Lily for in-person school after April break, with a plan for short days at first. She took Grace to the child therapist in Rockland every Tuesday and waited in a room with magazines about gardening while Ranger slept across her boots. She cooked at the rescue station, helped Nathan organize repair invoices, answered Miriam's calls at the shop, and learned which fishermen paid on time and which paid in haddock. Nathan taught Lily how to check the oil in the snowblower before storing it, which Lily declared less useful than learning taxes, but more interesting than spelling. Grace began saying single words around the house: soup, blue, wait, Ranger, light. Each word arrived like a shell found on cold sand, small and whole, proof the tide had given something back. Nathan did not praise her too loudly. None of them did. When Grace spoke, the nearest person answered naturally and let the word live without putting it on display. The first time she said Nathan's name, everyone failed at this. It happened because Ranger blocked the pantry, hoping someone would interpret his hunger as a constitutional issue. Grace pointed and said, "Nathan, move him." Nathan froze with a can of tomatoes in his hand. Lily's eyes went huge. Claire dropped a spoon. Ranger remained in place, unimpressed by historic language milestones. Nathan cleared his throat. "Ranger, move." The dog did not. Grace sighed, stepped around him, and took crackers from the shelf herself. Owen, who was present because dinner had become a community event by accident, whispered, "Command authority needs work." Nathan looked at the ceiling for strength. Grace ate a cracker and said, "He bad." The kitchen erupted in careful, strangled silence as everyone tried not to laugh too much. Ranger accepted the criticism with dignity and a second cracker. That night, Claire cried in the laundry room, where no one could make a fuss over her. Nathan found her anyway. He stood in the doorway, leaving space. "Good tears. I do not know yet." He nodded. "Those are confusing." "You have categories? Working on it." She wiped her face and laughed softly. Then he stepped closer, slow enough for refusal, and she leaned into him. His arms came around her with a care that had become more intimate than urgency. They stood among towels and detergent while the dryer hummed like a distant engine, and Claire thought love might not always arrive with violins. Sometimes it came wearing wool socks, holding still until you believed it would not close around you like a trap. Peter did not stay quiet. He had lost the easy ground, and that made him more dangerous in subtler ways. Daniel received a late filing from Peter's attorneys claiming Claire had written to Peter weeks after leaving Providence, expressing confusion, fear, and uncertainty about whether she could care for the girls. They attached a copy of a letter Claire remembered with immediate shame. She had written it from a church office in Massachusetts. During one of the worst nights when Grace had a fever, Lily had asked whether heaven had rental rooms, and Claire had not slept in 30 hours. She had never mailed it. Or she thought she had not. The letter was a cry more than a message. "Peter, I cannot do this. I do not know where to go. The girls need more than I can give. Adam would know what to do. I am so tired. If you would just stop trying to own us, maybe I could ask for help." Reading it at Daniel's office, Claire felt herself split between the woman who wrote those words and the woman now sitting in a chair in Rockland with a wedding ring on her hand and Ranger's fur on her coat. Peter's attorneys argued the letter proved instability. Daniel read it twice, then leaned back. "This may help us." Claire stared at him. It says I cannot do this. It says you were exhausted and afraid of Peter's control. It says you wanted help without surrendering autonomy. It says exactly what we have argued, you were under pressure and still trying to protect your children. It sounds weak. Nathan, sitting beside her, said, It sounds human. Claire looked at him. He had been quiet through the reading, but not distant. Human mothers can lose children in court. Daniel's face softened. Courts see weakness. They also see context. We give them the full context before Peter defines it. Lily, who had not been meant to see the letter but had read enough over Claire's shoulder to understand, spoke from the corner. Mama was tired because he made everything hard. Daniel nodded. Exactly. Can I say that? Claire turned. You have already said enough. Lily's eyes flashed. You always say I carry too much, but then you try to carry it alone. That is not fair. The room quieted around the truth. Nathan looked at Claire without rescuing her from it. Claire breathed in. You are right. Lily blinked, unprepared for victory. I am, yes, but I still get to decide how much weight goes on your shoulders. Then decide some, not all. Daniel wrote something on his pad, not because it was evidence Claire suspected, but because lawyers also needed places to put moments too large for silence. That evening at home, Claire read the letter again by the stove. Nathan sat nearby repairing a lamp cord. If Judge Holloway sees this and thinks Peter is right, then Daniel argues, and if argument is not enough, Nathan set down the cord, then we keep going. That is not a plan. It is the part under every plan. She looked at him. You really mean that? Yes. Even if this marriage becomes harder than you imagine? He smiled faintly. Claire, everything in this house is harder than I imagined. Ranger has opinions about beds. Lily fact-checks breakfast. Grace outranks all of us with a pencil. Miriam enters without knocking even when the door is locked, which I still cannot explain. And I am in love with my wife before either of us scheduled time to discuss it. The lamp cord slipped from Claire's hand. Nathan went very still as if he had surprised himself onto thin ice. Claire's heart beat once, hard. You are, yes. That was a terrible delivery, I know. No warning, I was repairing a lamp. That is not traditionally where declarations happen. I can try again near a window. She started laughing. And then she was crying. And then he crossed the space between them because this time she reached first. Their kiss was not a wedding duty, not a performance for paperwork, not a desperate grasp at protection. It was quiet and astonished, a little clumsy, touched by laughter and full of the strange gratitude of two people finding that the thing built for survival had grown roots while they were busy checking the locks. The night before the ruling, Peter drove past the rescue station twice. He did not stop. The no-contact order kept him on the public road, and the sheriff's patrol car parked at the overlook kept him from pretending he had innocent business there. Still, the sight of the black SUV moving below the hill made the house tighten around its breath. Claire saw it first while clearing dinner plates. Lily saw her see it. Grace saw Lily freeze. Nathan saw all three of them and put his hand on Ranger's collar. For 1 second, every old pattern invited itself in. Claire could become frantic. Lily could become the guard. Grace could disappear. Nathan could become a weapon. Ranger could become a warning instead of comfort. Then Nathan said, "Emergency soup doctrine is insufficient. We are upgrading to emergency pancakes." Lily stared at him. It is nighttime. Correct. Pancakes are breakfast. Tell that to maritime law. That makes no sense. Most maritime law is surprisingly pancake-friendly. Owen, who had come by to review the next day's schedule and was trapped by weather and drama, nodded solemnly. I can confirm. I was once a corpsman. That is not law, Lily said, but her voice had lost its brittle edge. Grace whispered, "Blue pancakes." Claire looked at Nathan. Nathan looked at the pantry. Miriam, who had been knitting in the armchair because she had sensed trouble again with supernatural timing, rose like a general. "Food coloring. Top shelf. Move, amateurs." They made blue pancakes while Peter's SUV passed once more below the hill and then disappeared under the eye of the patrol car. The pancakes were objectively strange. Owen ate 5. Ranger received none because Nathan claimed blue was not a recognized canine flavor. Grace drew the pancakes afterward, coloring them with such enthusiasm that Lily said they looked like small ponds. Nathan took the picture near the lighthouse.
The house chose absurdity over fear, and Claire loved every person in it for trying. Later, after the girls slept, she and Nathan sat on the porch steps with blankets over their shoulders. The snow had mostly melted from the roof, and the night smelled of wet earth, salt, and the first living hint of spring.
"You said you loved me," Claire said.
"I did. Were you planning to mention it again?" "I was giving you space to file a response." She laughed softly.
"You and Daniel spend too much time together."
Nathan looked down at their joined hands.
"I do love you. It scares me, not because of you, because I know loss now. I know how a house sounds after the person who made it warm is gone."
Claire leaned her head against his shoulder.
"I love you too."
He went still. She felt it pass through him, the shock of receiving what he had offered.
"You do?"
"Yes."
"Not because you saved us in the storm, not because you are good in a crisis,
Because you stayed after the crisis turned into dishes, court dates, nightmares, and a dog who spits pills onto your boots." His laugh broke on something tender.
"That dog is a menace.
He is our lighthouse. He will be impossible if you tell him."
He already knows."
The harbor bell sounded softer in spring fog than winter snow. Claire closed her eyes. For once, the sound did not feel like warning. It felt like witness. Morning came bright and cold, with frost silvering the grass where snow had finally withdrawn. They drove to Portland under a sky scrubbed clean, all 4 humans in Nathan's truck, because Grace requested Ranger, close but not squished, which required creative seating, and Owen following with the dog after a breakfast negotiation involving bacon that no one documented. Judge Holloway's courtroom felt different this time. Not safer, but familiar in the grim way a battlefield might become familiar to those forced to cross it repeatedly. Claire wore Adam's badge pinned inside her coat again. Nathan wore his silver band, and for the first time his dog tags beneath his shirt. He had taken them from the wooden box that morning without ceremony. Claire had seen him do it. When he caught her looking, he said, "Light under the shirt." Grace had heard and smiled. Peter sat at the other table, face composed but thinner, the strain showing now around the mouth. His attorneys submitted the letter Claire had written from Massachusetts. Daniel rose and, with Claire's permission, read the full context into the record. He did not hide the line, "I cannot do this." He placed beside it the line, "If you would just stop trying to own us, maybe I could ask for help." He presented the package: the investigator, the recorder, the voicemail, the no-contact concerns, Patricia's report, Dr. Mercer's statement, and Mr. Alvarez's written account of Claire's actions during the storm. Marcia argued that Peter had acted from concern. Daniel answered that concern, which repeatedly crossed boundaries, became control, and control was not care. Judge Holloway retired to chambers at 11:40. They waited. Noon passed. Owen took Lily for vending machine pretzels. Miriam prayed quietly with her eyes open because she said closing them allowed fools to move unobserved. Grace sat on the floor of the waiting room with Ranger and drew one last picture. Claire could not look at it yet. Nathan sat beside her, their shoulders touching. "Whatever happens," he began. Claire stopped him. "Do not say the speech where you promise to fight through every appeal and sleep in the courthouse if needed." I had a shorter version. "I know the version. I love the version. I cannot hear it right now." He nodded. "Then I will sit." So he sat.
That was the speech. At 1:17, the clerk called them back. Judge Holloway read from her ruling in a voice that did not tremble under the weight it carried. Claire retained full custody. The court declined Peter's petition for temporary or emergency custody and found credible concern that his behavior had contributed to the children's distress. Maine jurisdiction would remain active while coordination with Rhode Island proceeded. Peter was prohibited from direct or indirect contact with the children, absent court approval. Nathan's guardianship petition could proceed with adoption review available after statutory requirements were met. The judge noted that Nathan's military history and PTSD, based on evidence presented, did not make him unsafe. His treatment compliance restraint and support network weighed in his favor. Claire heard the words as if through water. Then Lily shouted, "We stay!" Judge Holloway looked over her glasses, and for the first time Claire saw warmth break through the official face. "Yes, Miss Bennett. You stay." Peter stood abruptly. Gerald Voss put a hand on his arm. Peter pulled free but did not come closer. "This is not over," he said, voice low. Judge Holloway's gavel struck once, not hard, but enough. "In this courtroom, Mr. Walsh, it is over for today. I suggest you respect the order more carefully than you have respected this family." Peter left without looking at the girls. The door closed. Claire realized she was holding Nathan's hand so tightly his fingers had gone pale. She loosened her grip. He held tighter. Grace walked to him, drawing in hand. She looked up, eyes clear and wet, and said, "Can we go home now?" Nathan crouched. His dog tag slipped free of his collar, catching the light. "Yes," he said, voice wrecked. "We can go home." Ranger leaned against both of them, and Lily, after a brief internal debate with dignity, threw her arms around Nathan's neck from the side so hard he nearly lost balance. Claire put her arms around all of them in a courthouse room that smelled of paper and rain and something like mercy. It was not the final end of every legal road. It was the end of running. They reached Camden at sunset when the sky over Penobscot Bay had opened into bands of rose gold and soft blue, the kind of color winter keeps hidden until it is ready to apologize. The road to the rescue station climbed between wet stone walls and spruce trees, shedding the last of their snow in glittering falls. Claire sat in the passenger seat with the court order folded in her bag beside Adam's badge. Lily slept in the back, with her head against the window, mouth slightly open, looking younger than she had in months. Grace stayed awake, one hand resting on Ranger's head, where the dog lay stretched across the seat in a manner that would have horrified vehicle safety experts and comforted every wounded soul in the truck. Nathan drove slowly, not because the road required it, but because arrival had become something too large to rush. At the top of the hill, the old rescue station came into view, red roof wet with thaw, windows lit, amber smoke rising from the chimney in a straight, peaceful line. Miriam's truck was already there. Owen's SUV, too. Reverend Avery's old sedan sat crookedly near the spruce because, apparently, parking with spiritual authority did not guarantee accuracy. On the porch, someone had hung a strand of warm white lights around the railing. The sight undid Claire. Not loudly. She simply pressed a hand to her mouth and let the tears come. Nathan parked but did not turn off the engine right away. "Too much?" he asked. Claire shook her head. "No, just enough." Lily woke as the engine stopped. She blinked at the porch lights, then at the house. "Did Miriam decorate our trauma?" "Almost certainly," Nathan said. "With tasteful restraint," Claire added. Lily gave her a look. "There is a banner." There was indeed a banner taped between two porch posts. It read, "Welcome Home," in Miriam's uncompromising block letters with what appeared to be a lopsided dog paw drawn beside the words. Grace leaned forward. "Home," she said, testing the word as if it were warm bread. Nathan's hand tightened on the steering wheel. Claire saw it. He had opened the door in a storm. He had offered shelter, then legality, then patience, then his own frightened heart. Still, he looked startled by a child's word landing on him like a blessing he had not trained for. Ranger stood, shook himself, and stepped on Owen's file box that had been left in the back seat. Paper slid everywhere. Lily sighed. Ranger ruined the law. Good dog, Nathan murmured. Claire laughed through tears. Miriam came down the steps before they had fully unloaded, waving a dish towel like a flag. Do not stand in the driveway looking meaningful. Food is getting cold. Owen appeared behind her, carrying a pot with both hands and an expression of heroic suffering. She made me stir gravy for 40 minutes. It had lumps, Miriam said. It had personality. Lumps are not personality, Owen. Reverend Avery stood in the doorway, smiling, his coat still on, as if he had been invited to bless the threshold, and then wisely stayed near the heat. The girls climbed out first. Lily took 2 steps toward the porch, stopped, and looked back at Claire. We really stay? The question was smaller than the courtroom version, more child than soldier. Claire crossed the slush and cupped her daughter's face. We really stay. Lily nodded once, then ran up the steps before tears could catch her. Grace climbed down more slowly. She held Nathan's dog tags in one hand. He had given them to her to hold during the drive after she asked about the light under his shirt. Now she stood in the driveway between the truck and the house, looking at the rescue station as if measuring whether a drawing had become real. Ranger waited beside her, tail low and patient. Nathan came around the truck but did not hurry her. No one did. The sun slipped lower, painting the snowbanks peach. From below came the faint sound of the harbor bell. Click went Ranger's collar when he shifted. Grace looked at the dog, then at Nathan. She lifted both arms. For a second he did not understand, then his face changed. Claire had seen Nathan in danger, in anger, in court, in the terrible restraint of old grief. She had not seen him afraid of tenderness quite like this. He crouched and Grace walked into his arms. He lifted her carefully as if she were both glass and weather, and she wrapped one arm around his neck while the other still held the dog tags. Her cheek rested against his shoulder. Everyone on the porch went silent, even Miriam, which proved the seriousness of the moment. Grace turned her face enough for her voice to carry. Dad? She said, clear as the harbor bell. Nathan's eyes closed. His whole body seemed to absorb the word, not like a prize, not like a title he had won, but like a responsibility being laid gently into hands already open. Grace added, Ranger says, we are home. Owen made a sound and blamed the cold. Miriam pressed the dish towel to her eyes. Lily came back down the steps and tucked herself against Nathan's side, muttering, She speaks for dogs now. That is new. Nathan laughed and cried at the same time, holding Grace with one arm and reaching for Lily with the other. Claire joined them in the wet driveway, her arms going around the strange, chosen shape of her family. Ranger leaned against all of their legs, nearly toppling the entire legal arrangement into slush. It was imperfect. It was ridiculous. It was holy. Dinner that night filled the rescue station with more noise than its old walls had held in years. Miriam had made pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, biscuits, gravy with alleged personality, and a lemon cake, because she said victory required citrus to keep pride from getting heavy. Reverend Avery said a brief grace that thanked God for shelter, courage, wise judges, stubborn neighbors, good dogs, and the mercy of arriving. He did not make the prayer long. Lily approved. Owen told Mr. Alvarez's latest message the tow driver was home from the hospital and had been forbidden by his wife from working storms, climbing ladders, or arguing with soup. Nathan said that sounded medically sound. Claire promised to visit with the girls when things settled. Things never settle, Miriam said. They just learn where to sit.
Grace drew during dessert, but this time she narrated in little pieces. This is the house. This is Smoke. This is Lily. This is Mama. This is Ranger's bed. Ranger,
who was sleeping under the table and not on the bed, ignored the slander. This is Owen. Owen leaned over. Why am I holding a spoon? Grace looked at him with solemn patience. Because soup. Fair. She drew Reverend Avery near the door. Churchman. The Reverend nodded. I have been called worse. She drew Miriam twice, once in the kitchen and once at the door. Lily said, That is accurate. She is everywhere. Miriam looked pleased. Last, Grace drew Nathan beside the lighthouse beam. She frowned, and Grace drew him again, closer to Claire, then gave him a square over his heart. Light undershirt, she said. Nathan touched the dog tags beneath his collar. Yes, ma'am. Claire watched him answer the child without flinching from the title or the tenderness. Later, when dishes were stacked and the girls had changed into pajamas, Lily stood by the shelf where Adam's badge rested. Nathan joined her, leaving a careful distance. Can I ask something? Lily said. Always. If I call you Nathan most days and Dad sometimes by accident, is that allowed? Nathan's face did something complicated. It is allowed on purpose, too, if you ever want. I do not want to hurt my real dad. Claire, standing in the doorway, felt the sentence go through her. Nathan looked at Adam's photograph. Loving me will not take anything from him. Lily's eyes shone. How do you know? Nathan was quiet. Because loving you and Grace did not take Elise from me. It made the room where I keep her less dark. Lily absorbed that slowly. Then she leaned sideways until her shoulder touched his arm. Not a hug. For Lily, perhaps more. Okay, she said. Nathan stood very still, accepting the full ceremony of it. In the bedroom, Grace called, Lily, Ranger is on my blanket. Lily rolled her eyes. He is a retired hero with bad manners. The house laughed, and the laugh did not break. After everyone left, the rescue station settled into a quieter happiness, the kind that does not ask to be photographed because it is busy becoming real. Claire tucked the girls into bed. Grace insisted Ranger sleep inside the room just for home night, and Nathan allowed it after a stern lecture to the dog about professionalism. Ranger climbed onto the new cedar bed only after Grace placed Adam's good blanket there. Lily noticed. He waited until it mattered. Nathan looked at the dog. He does that. Grace, already half asleep, whispered, Good wait. Claire kissed both girls and stood for a moment in the doorway, watching them beneath the soft lamp. Two children in a room with a window that opened a door that could lock and no fear on the other side of it. She closed the door halfway, not all the way. Downstairs, Nathan was on the porch, exactly where she expected him, but he was not standing guard. He was sitting on the steps with 2 mugs of tea and a blanket beside him. The harbor lay dark below, pricked with small lights. The air smelled of thawing earth and salt. Claire sat beside him. Tea? Miriam said coffee after 8 makes me brooding. Miriam says many things. Most are unfortunately accurate. Claire took the mug. They sat in silence, listening to the bell, the distant water, the old house ticking as it cooled. The imaginary lighthouse of Grace's drawings had no tower on the hill, no rotating lamp, no official chart marking its beam. And still, Claire felt it there, in the porch light, in Ranger's tag, in Nathan's hand resting open between them, in the court order folded inside her bag, in the sound of her daughter's breathing upstairs. What happens next? She asked. Nathan looked at the harbor. Legal follow-up, adoption process if you and the girls still want it, school for Lily, therapy for Grace, repair season, Ranger pretending his bed is optional, Miriam ignoring boundaries in the name of casserole. And us? He turned his hand palm up. She placed hers in it. We keep choosing the work. Claire smiled. That sounds familiar. I am improving my material by repetition. She leaned against him. I love you. He closed his fingers around hers. I love you too. The words no longer sounded dragged from a locked room. They sounded weathered, a little rough, but willing to stay outside in the cold until the porch light came on. Claire thought of the night she arrived, half frozen, ashamed, carrying a lie and a child who had misplaced her voice. She thought of Nathan opening the door with fear in his own bones and letting them in anyway. She thought of Lily learning that watching did not mean she had to stand alone. She thought of Grace telling the dark no. She thought of Ranger, who had found a hidden device, guarded a threshold, spat out medicine, and somehow understood that some children need a dog to wait while words come back. This was not a fairy tale. No magic erased the paperwork, brief therapy appointments, or the memory of snow on a night road. It was better than magic in the way real mercy often is. It was built from warm bowls, honest records kept, distance, patient listening, legal courage, bad pancakes, and a retired war dog who knew when to lean. Above them, stars opened through the clearing clouds. Behind them, the house glowed. Claire Bennett Cole closed her eyes and breathed in the life she had not found but built, one truthful day at a time. Some stories remind us that God does not always send help in the form we expect. Sometimes help looks like an old house with a porch light in a snowstorm. Sometimes it looks like a quiet man still healing from his own battles. Sometimes it looks like a loyal dog who knows how to wait beside a frightened child until her words return. Claire's journey teaches us that asking for shelter is not weakness, and Nathan's journey teaches us that strength is not control. Real love makes room. It listens. It protects without possessing. It tells the truth even when truth is costly. If this story touched your heart, comment Amen, and remember someone in your life who may need a little light left on for them. Share this with a friend or family member who believes broken people can still build beautiful homes. Subscribe for more stories of courage, faith, loyalty, and the quiet miracles that arrive when we keep walking toward the light.